bespoke radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
I need your help to get to the year 1985.
You're listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
All right, here we go. Welcome. This is Fade to Black, bespoke radio for the masses. Today is Friday, January 20th. 20 days into the new year, just 345 days left. And I would like to welcome everybody listening all around the world, all across the United States, on this very important day, the inauguration of Donald Trump. For KJCR, the Game Changer Network, and KGRA, The Planet, I'm your host, Jimmy Church. This is our inauguration special event with Andy Basiago co-hosting. He will be with us shortly. You can follow us on Twitter at JChurchRadio, Facebook, YouTube. Everything is Fade to Black, Jimmy Church Radio. You know what to do. Go follow, like, and subscribe. You can email throughout the show today, Jimmy@JimmyChurchRadio.com. To get in on Twitter, use hashtag F2B. That is the sandbox. All right. Here we go. Please visit all of our sponsors. Click on the banners over at JimmyChurchRadio.com. Use the promo codes for discounts and free shipping and all the things that come with being a Fade or Not and being a part of Fade to Black. This is it. This is the day that we have been waiting for. The inauguration of Donald Trump as our 45th president. And let's listen in.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear.
I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear.
That I will faithfully execute.
That I will faithfully execute.
The office of President of the United States.
The office of President of the United States.
And will, to the best of my ability.
And will, to the best of my ability.
Preserve, protect, and defend.
Preserve, protect, and defend.
The Constitution of the United States.
The Constitution of the United States.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, Mr. President.
Well, there you have it. Donald Trump is now President Donald Trump, the 45th President of the United States of America. A historic event. Some, if not all, didn't think that this day would happen. The media throughout 2016 was against this. Most journalists, celebrities, the media from all directions didn't think that this was possible and did everything that they could to criticize, and a lot of things had surfaced over 2016. about his background. We had the tapes and the video. And
what a great honor to be able to introduce for the first time ever anywhere the 45th President of the United States of America, Donald J. Trump.
So he has just taken the oath. He is now stepping up to the podium. The crowd is massive. Security. Here we go. Let's listen in to Donald Trump for the first time as President of the United States.
Chief Justice Roberts, President Carter, President Clinton, President Bush, President Obama, fellow Americans, and people of the world, thank you. We, the citizens of America, are now joined in a great national effort to rebuild our country and restore its promise for all of our people. Together, we will determine the course of America and the world for many, many years to come. We will face challenges. We will confront hardships, but we will get the job done. Every 4 years, we gather on these steps to carry out the orderly and peaceful transfer of power. And we are grateful to President Obama and First Lady Michelle Obama for their gracious aid throughout this transition. They have been magnificent. Thank you. Today's ceremony, however, has very special meaning because today we are not merely transferring power from one administration to another or from one party to another, but we are transferring power from Washington, D.C., and giving it back to you, the people. For too long, a small group in our nation's capital has reaped the rewards of government while the people have borne the cost. Washington flourished, but the people did not share in its wealth. Politicians prospered, but the jobs left and the factories closed. The establishment protected itself, but not the citizens of our country. Their victories have not been your victories. Their triumphs have not been your triumphs. And while they celebrated in our nation's capital, there was little to celebrate for struggling families all across our land. That all changes starting right here and right now, because this moment is your moment. It belongs to you. It belongs to everyone gathered here today and everyone watching all across America. This is your day. This is your celebration. And this, the United States of America, is your country. What truly matters is not which party controls our government, but whether our government is controlled by the people. January 20th, 2017 will be remembered as the day the people became the rulers of this nation again. The forgotten men and women of our country will be forgotten no longer. Everyone is listening to you now. You came by the tens of millions to become part of a historic movement, the likes of which the world has never seen before. At the center of this movement is a crucial conviction that a nation exists to serve its citizens. Americans want great schools for their children, safe neighborhoods for their families, and good jobs for themselves. These are just and reasonable demands of righteous people and a righteous public. But for too many of our citizens, a different reality exists. Mothers and children trapped in poverty in our inner cities, rusted out factories scattered like tombstones across the landscape of our nation, an education system flush with cash, but which leaves our young and beautiful students deprived of all knowledge. And the crime and the gangs and the drugs that have stolen too many lives and robbed our country of so much unrealized potential. This American carnage stops right here and stops right now. We are one nation, and their pain is our pain. Their dreams are our dreams, and their success will be our success. We share one heart, one home, and one glorious destiny. The oath of office I take today is an oath of allegiance to all Americans. For many decades, we've enriched foreign industry at the expense of American industry, subsidized the armies of other countries while allowing for the very sad depletion of our military. We've defended other nations' borders while refusing to defend our own. And spent trillions and trillions of dollars overseas while America's infrastructure has fallen into disrepair and decay. We've made other countries rich while the wealth, strength, and confidence of our country has dissipated over the horizon. One by one, the factories shuttered and left our shores, with not even a thought about the millions and millions of American workers that were left behind. The wealth of our middle class has been ripped from their homes and then redistributed all across the world. But that is the past, and now we are looking only to the future. We assembled here today are issuing a new decree to be heard in every city, in every foreign capital, and in every hall of power. From this day forward, a new vision will govern our land. From this day forward, it's going to be only America first. America first. Every decision on trade, on taxes, on immigration, on foreign affairs will be made to benefit American workers and American families. We must protect our borders from the ravages of other countries making our products, stealing our companies, and destroying our jobs. Protection will lead to great prosperity and strength. I will fight for you with every breath in my body, and I will never, ever let you down. America will start winning again, winning like never before. We will bring back our jobs. We will bring back our borders. We will bring back our wealth. And we will bring back our dreams. We will build new roads and highways and bridges and airports and tunnels and railways all across our wonderful nation. We will get our people off of welfare and back to work, rebuilding our country with American hands and American labor. We will follow two simple rules: buy American and hire American. We will seek friendship and goodwill with the nations of the world, but we do so with the understanding that it is the right of all nations to put their own interests first. We do not seek to impose our way of life on anyone, but rather to let it shine as an example. We will shine for everyone to follow. We will reinforce old alliances and form new ones and unite the civilized world against radical Islamic terrorism, which we will eradicate completely from the face of the earth. At the bedrock of our politics will be a total allegiance to the United States of America. And through our loyalty to our country, we will rediscover our loyalty to each other. When you open your heart to patriotism, there is no room for prejudice. The Bible tells us how good and pleasant it is when God's people live together in unity. We must speak our minds openly, debate our disagreements honestly, but always pursue solidarity. When America is united, America is totally unstoppable. There should be no fear. We are protected, and we will always be protected. We will be protected by the great men and women of our military and law enforcement. And most importantly, we will be protected by God. Finally, we must think big and dream even bigger. In America, we understand that a nation is only living as long as it is striving. We will no longer accept politicians who are all talk and no action, constantly complaining but never doing anything about it. The time for empty talk is over. Now arrives the hour of action. Do not allow anyone to tell you that it cannot be done. No challenge can match the heart and fight and spirit of America. We will not fail. Our country will thrive and prosper again. We stand at the birth of a new millennium, ready to unlock the mysteries of space, to free the earth from the miseries of disease, and to harness the energies, industries, and technologies of tomorrow. A new national pride will stir our souls, lift our sights, and heal our divisions. It's time to remember that old wisdom our soldiers will never forget, that whether we are black or brown or white, we all bleed the same red blood of patriots. We all enjoy the same glorious freedoms, and we all salute the same great American flag. And whether a child is born in the urban sprawl of Detroit or the windswept plains of Nebraska, they look up at the same night sky, they fill their heart with the same dreams, and they are infused with the breath of life by the same almighty Creator. So to all Americans in every city, near and far, small and large, from mountain to mountain, from ocean to ocean, hear these words: you will never be ignored again. Your voice, your hopes, and your dreams will define our American destiny. And your courage and goodness and love will forever guide us along the way. Together, we will make America strong again. We will make America wealthy again. We will make America proud again. We will make America safe again. And yes, together, we will make America great again. Thank you, God bless you, and God bless America. Thank you. God bless America.
Well, there you go. Powerful speech. Powerful speech from President Donald Trump. As Barack Obama comes up, shakes his hand, there's Joe Biden. There's Bill Clinton. And there you go. A powerful speech. And I was just watching in Twitter, and everybody just follows on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Use hashtag F2B, and I will see it in the Twitter feed. Yeah, promises. You've got to live up to this. I saw another tweet that came in and said, can you feel the good history? Can you feel it? Well, it's the same thing with every president as they come in. My only comment with anything like that is it's a tough gig. It's a tough job. And making those promises are easy. But you have to deliver. And, we've seen it so many times. We have the hope when we have a new president. We come off a campaign with promises, and we go through another cycle where nothing seems to happen. Nothing seems to change. But this time around, let's see. He's a different president. He's different than anything else before. The only thing that I can compare this to, and some have, is Ronald Reagan. In that Ronald came in, a career actor, and came in, governor of California, and had his political experience, and he ran and lost for the presidency a few times. But he came in, and 8 years later became one of the greatest presidents in our nation's history. So here we have President Donald Trump. He has the same opportunities available to him that every other president does. And will he make those differences? Will he be able to affect change? I look back at 8 years ago when Obama was elected, and he was a different president, too. He was our first black president. He was young and, talked about change. I look back now, I'm going to say this. I've never commented directly on Obama's presidency, but the 8 years of Obama seemed to be pretty bland, pretty safe. all the radical things that we thought were going to happen with a president like him for the first time. It just didn't. It just seemed to be status quo and pretty smooth. I will say this, looking back, Obama and his family. Obama was a cool guy. All right, he was a cool guy. He didn't ruin the country. Nothing like that happened. In fact, the economy did grow. He inherited a huge mess from the Bush administration and the economy and the market crash and everything else that happened. And, he affected all of those bank saving measures and just threw so much money into that, did everything he could to save what was left. But he went from that economy to where we are today, and things are okay. It's not bad. Gas prices and employment is up, and the economy is so much stronger, and the stock market is at 20,000. So it's not like it was bad. It was actually pretty good, but it was also safe. There wasn't any chances taken. Not like what President Trump is talking about. He's talking about huge changes in everything. Now, I have talked about on this show many times in the past about our infrastructure, about the American worker, and the way that I never really understood back in the 80s when factories started to leave this country. It just never made sense to me. It just didn't. And this is the first time I've heard a president talk about this. And so it's the influence of corporate America that comes into Washington, D.C., and corporate profits that were put first and not Americans. And I never got that. Now, I do want to say this as we move on in this program today. We're going to bring Andy Basiago in a few short minutes. But myself, personally, I don't talk about my political views. And what happened to me when I was 18, and now I'm old enough to vote, and when I turned 18, I got a draft card, by the way, and a week later, the draft was ended, and I didn't have to send it in. I had a couple of days left that I had to send it in because of the timing of my birthday, which is October 10th. And if you look back to those dates, you can see exactly what I'm talking about. But anyway, I didn't know if I was a Democrat, a Republican. I was 18 years old. I was a guitar player, an artist. I looked at life from an artist viewpoint. I was a creative person, and I just didn't look at politics. But at that time, Reagan was our president, and I dug him. I really did. I thought Reagan was just like a cool guy, and so did the rest of the country. So I picked up on that vibe, and I called myself a Republican because of President Reagan. And from that day forward, as I started to grow up and mature and become an adult and go out there and fight the good fight, jobs and paying rent and going to school and everything that I was trying to do and play guitar. And I started to look at the Democrats. And as we got out of the Reagan years, I started to get confused. I liked the messages from both sides. I liked parts of both sides. I really did. There are things about the Republican Party that really make me warm and fuzzy as an American on the inside. And the Democrats, it depends on how far left you want to go or how far right you want to go, for that matter, that I liked both sides. I did, and I found myself confused. So my choice, and I think that you've been able to see this over the past 4 years on this show. I was in the middle. I just went with who or what I felt was best. That's all. I was equally critical on both sides, and I find that easier to do, and I sleep better at night because we are all Americans, and whether, the Republicans want the best for this country and the Democrats want the best for this country. And then something else happened. I started to find out that it didn't really matter if you were a Republican or Democrat, that there was corruption on both sides, that there was influence from corporations on both sides. Corporations aren't Republican or Democrat. They don't care. They are going for the dollar in the background. And then you have the military, and you have the rest of the world that's going on. And there was something else pushing the agenda. And that it wasn't, I just woke up, that it wasn't Republican or Democrat or who was in the White House, who these administrations were, that it was something else. And that's what started to intrigue me. I looked at the big picture around the world, and I looked at the big money, and I looked at these false flags and these wars going on and what was driving them. And that's really what woke me up. And that's why I'm not either. I have chosen to support whoever the dark side is in the Oval Office. That's what we have to do as Americans. There's a lot that we can't control. There's an agenda that has been in place that will be in place after Trump leaves office. That machine will continue. That global control will continue. And with that, on our Inauguration Day special, this is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. I'm going to get out of here. Going to take a quick break. And when I come back, we will be joined with my co-host for the show today, Andy Basiago. Andy announced his run this year. He did that with me over on this show and at Coast to Coast. He's got a lot to say about politics, but he's also a time traveler. That's right. What does he know? Well, we're going to find out right after this. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Welcome everybody listening to our inauguration live event here on Fade to Black. I'll be right back with Andy Basiago. Stay right there.
You're listening to Jimmy Church, Fade to Black.
Fade to Black will now pause for alien identification.
The station that talks the net. KGRA Radio. When you take the beans from Central America with dashes of Indonesian and African mixed in and then roast it to the dark side of Fade to Black, you create the ultimate brew of fringe. Introducing the Fade to Black blend from River Moon Coffee. Yes, River Moon's darkest customized roast was created for the love of Fade to Black. The alchemy of masterful roasting and smoking the beans is in every sip of this full-bodied, dark Java. I need my coffee dark, deep, with distinct bittersweet chocolate highlights, just like the bunker. Leaning further into the darkness of the roast is Fade to Black blend from River Moon Coffee. Just click on the banner at jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code F2B blend for 15% off of your order today. Go Beckley Teppy.
Hi, folks. In a world of GMO, genetically modified organisms, that is, chemicals, processed foods, and a healthcare system that's unraveling like a cheap suit, it's time to prepare. God created herbs, and herbs help man. Our body can heal itself, just sometimes we need assistance. You need some help? GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com. Our mild detox is quite powerful with its unique blend of 8 different herbs. And if you're looking for more, our non-GMO supplements will help you with different needs you might have. Health should be a top priority. Take care of your health naturally. Log on to GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com. Give your body a treat. Let the herbs do their thing naturally. Read all the testimonies on the website, GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com. Sickness and viruses are like intruders, and herbs are like warriors. Let the tea work for you. That's GetTheTea.com.
9 out of 10 geneticists agree.
Fade to Black is not your father's radio show on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, The Planet.
Hi, this is Chase Kletsky with Fate Magazine Radio, and you're listening to Jimmy Church and Fade to Black on the Game Changer Network and the KGRA digital broadcast station, where the Fade or Nots rock.
Hi, this is Rob Reiner from Anvil, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
What's up? I'm Chris. What up? This is Kyle Massey, and you're listening to Jimmy Church Radio.
All right, welcome back. Fade to Black. Our very special live event, the inauguration. And now we'll say it from here on out, of President Donald Trump, our 45th President of the United States. And I'm going to bring in the one and only, our good friend, Andy Basiago. Andy, are you there, my friend?
I am, Jimmy.
Good. Well, for you, I guess it's good afternoon. It's still good morning out here in Los Angeles. Welcome to the program, Andy. How are things?
Excellent, Jimmy. Thank you for having me on. I did have an opportunity to witness the, not the swearing in, but I did witness the inaugural speech that Mr. Trump just gave.
And what did you think?
The inaugural address.
And what did you think?
Well, as a student of American history and also as somebody who was a fellow candidate of Mr. Trump, I hope that Americans appreciate that something really exceptional has happened. And let me explain. This is a president that comes into office with no previous political experience. He's never held any political office, federal, state, or local. He is a famously wealthy businessman whose prior relationship with the people has primarily been as an entertainer. He's clearly a very august and energetic individual. He has something of the, as I was watching him give his speech, he has something of the Thomas Edison or even the J.P. Morgan about him. In other words, he's a very energetic protean force, and he's making a compact with the American people that is quite amazing. And that is, he's saying, look, government has forgotten you, and as a result, your country has unraveled. And I'm going to do something for you. I'm going to bring your jobs back. I'm going to cut taxes so that American corporations return to this land. I'm going to secure your borders. I'm going to make you physically safe by, again, valorizing the military and the police. And in a sense, if you look at the history of the major parties, it's almost as if Donald Trump is trying to frame a new form of republicanism, a reform republicanism that has something of the Whig about it, the emphasis on internal improvements. So I just hope that my fellow Americans appreciate that this does mark a turning point, and if Mr. Trump is successful at implementing this agenda, he could be recognized later in history as one of our greatest presidents. If he does not get the consent and the cooperation of the Republican Congress that he's basically blessed coming in with, then this may mark another turning point in which there's an absolute loss of faith in government. But this is essentially a new deal for the American people, at least as stated by Trump, being brought to the fore by something we haven't seen since Theodore Roosevelt, which is a reform Republican president.
I'm looking now. Trump and Obama are walking through the Capitol building, and they're going to come down the steps, and that's the next step. What do you think is, as they come down the steps, one's going to get on a helicopter, one's going to get in a car, and that's it. What do you think is going through Obama's mind at this point?
God, I think he's realizing that he's a citizen again, and that he's no longer president, and he can stop speechifying. But it's been said in the study of the American presidency that each new president possesses something that the previous president lacked. So, for example, George W. Bush was a true family man. He was faithful to his wife, and he possessed sort of the probity of an honestly married man, of a faithful husband that President Clinton lacked. One could say that President Obama possessed the intelligence and erudition and eloquence that George W. Bush lacked. And I think we have to ask, what does Mr. Trump possess that Mr. Obama lacked? And I think I think what he possesses is that he's a man of action. I think that when Barack Obama entered the White House, he entered the presidency at a relatively young age. I think he was 47. He was maybe our third or fourth youngest president.
That's right.
After John F. Kennedy and Theodore Roosevelt. And I think as he ages, I certainly wish him a long and prosperous life after the presidency. He could live another 50 years. Today the U.S. Census Bureau estimates that American women now alive on average will live to 95, and American men of this generation will live to 85. So being a same-aged contemporary of Barack Obama, we could be around for another 40 or 50 years.
Right.
And I think as he looks back on his presidency, he's going to ask himself whether he was a successful president in light of being a man of action rather than of words. I think that primarily President Obama has led a hortatorical presidency. I think he's been, for the most part, all talk and no action. And I think that, beyond any imputation of racism or partisanship, marks the widespread perception that he's been a failed president.
I have, and I just made this comment earlier, and I do mean this. I think we're all blind with amnesia a little bit. If we look back, what Obama inherited was a mess, and he couldn't. His hands were tied. He couldn't do anything radical. The country was the world at that point, because of all of the failed banks and what was going on, was teetering on the edge. So he couldn't do, he was so focused on, dumping money into these failed banks and trying to save the economy before everything just disappeared in front of him. And we became this wasteland. That's what he was dealing with for a large part of that first couple of years. Trying to get things stabilized again. And so we look back at these 8 years of Obama, and they may not seem that spectacular because we expected change. Our first black president, young guy, played basketball.
A Democrat.
And a Democrat, too, sure. And those radical things that we expected from a young black man in the Oval Office didn't really materialize. But it's not like, we didn't sink into an abyss either. It was kind of a status quo, unradical 8 years. I think that we can look back and safely say he was an okay guy. He was an okay guy. He I think his family is cool. I thought that Michelle was pretty cool. And I just mean that not in a cavalier sense. what I'm trying to suggest here is that he doesn't have any black clouds, any controversy around him, and I don't know if we're going to remember his presidency for whatever reason. We're not going to remember it for bad things or for tremendously good things. It was just like a smooth 8 years without any real bumps going in either direction. And that's kind of the way that I feel about him. I don't love him and I don't hate him. He got us through 8 years.
Yes, and I think that any criticism of him will be leavened by the reality that he entered the White House with the economy literally teetering on the brink of collapse. Now, when historians examine the choices he made, I think they're going to identify a certain timidity. And let me just cite one example. When he, we had collateralized the whole economy as per the advice of Alan Greenspan after 9/11 by bringing mortgage rates below 1%. And that was a widespread public approach where there was a concern for the everyday American. But when President Obama had the opportunity to give the TARP funds to the 20 million families facing foreclosure and essentially, practically speaking, homelessness, or at least immediately the loss of their primary residence, he chose to give the money to the banks and allow them to triple dip. Because after all, under federal law, they were getting 80% of the loan value, then the right to foreclose, and he was giving them basically the public's largesse, the TARP funds, and thereby allowed them to triple dip, while he didn't do anything to protect families in foreclosure. So I think what will be noted about President Obama is that even though he came into office as a young African-American Democrat promising change and transparency and seemed to have every orientation in his ideological background to bring that about and potentially be a populist Democratic president, he essentially governed from the center right, and his choices were almost indistinguishable had George W. Bush occupied a third and a fourth term were that constitutionally allowed. That is to say, I feel that President Obama was at least as center-right as Bill Clinton, and maybe even more so. I often felt that he was trying to please everybody. There's that point that people make about government, and I think it's very valid. We've had two types of presidents. We've had the presidents who have wanted to be president. They're the kind of individuals who run for student body office in high school and college, and their instinct is to be popular. Then we've had presidents who have, instead of sticking their finger up in the air and determining which way the wind is blowing, they've been catalysts for true change. They've been leaders. And I think that's the primary criticism that will be waged against Barack Obama. He'll be clearly identified as a charismatic figure, highly articulate, a man of substantial grace in his personal demeanor and his ability to connect with the people, including especially young people. He's a cool guy. I mean, I knew Barack Obama back during our college years. I served in a federal defense-related research and development project with him. He's a nice guy, and he's a smart guy. So I always cringed when people were making personal criticisms of him. He's the kind of person that if you had gone to college with, you would have said, well, I'm kind of glad that the American people are trusting that individual with the presidency. But I think that the way that he governed was very safe, even timid. And I was left with the impression, as somebody who did know Barack Obama when we were in our late teens and early 20s, indeed served in a CIA program with him, that he was purposefully governing in a very safe and even timid way, that he was essentially striving, as the first black president, to be popular rather than to be a catalyst for change. Now, that may have been appropriate. I mean, the Great Recession, as it's been called, that we were confronted by, was a very dangerous moment in American history. And he had a lot of tough choices to make, and Monday morning quarterbacking is an extremely easy occupation. So, you can never judge someone until you stand in their shoes. That's the old Iroquois concept, Until you can walk a mile in a man's moccasins, you really can't judge him. And so I don't think any of us know the extreme tension that President Obama was under when he first came into office. And let's face it, we were facing national insolvency. Let me just cite one example in my own legal career.
Well, let me jump in really. In really quick. Obama and Michelle have now gotten on the helicopter. The helicopter has lifted away. It's on its way to Andrews, and that's it. And Trump is waving goodbye. And I wonder at this point, Andy, and then I'll get back to your thought there. What's going through Trump's mind as he's waving, on the steps and he's waving goodbye? What do you think now is going through Trump's mind?
I think he sees himself as a tribune of the people, and I think it's remarkable that. I think he's probably thinking, they told me that this was going to happen, because of course we know that Trump was one of the future presidents that was identified as early as the 1970s by the American intelligence community, and we can talk about this, but as a future president. I'm certain, because all of the other recent presidents were briefed, that he was briefed. So I think that he's viewing Obama's departure and his ascension to the presidency, his elevation to the presidency, as the fait accompli that was described to him years ago. But I think he also sees himself somewhat as a tribune of the people, as an outsider who, against all odds, was elected. And I think I'm going to go out on a limb here and say I think he's despite all of his defects as an individual and as a candidate. And there were many. There were instances in this campaign where I couldn't believe what he was doing. For example, ridiculing the disabled reporter from the New York Times. That was exceptionally mean-spirited. But I think that I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that I think Donald Trump is a legitimate harbinger for change, and I think he does want to bring about the model of government that informs his rhetoric. In other words, I think he's being sincere in what he has just described in his inaugural address, and that he's going to try to implement it. And this indicates basically we've entered a protectionist era in which the emphasis is going to be on the well-being of the United States, come hell or high water, without regard for any instinct towards any kind of Wilsonian idealism about what we should be abroad and all this kind of stuff. We've entered a new era in which I think he's a legitimate harbinger for change, and the emphasis is going to be on things like job creation, bringing American corporations back to the United States, asserting that we have a sovereign right to protect our borders, whether he builds a wall or not. I think that he believes his own rhetoric. I think it's sincere. I think it resonated not just with Republicans, but obviously with enough Democrats in the Rust Belt to get him elected president. And so I think this is really a turning point in American history. And I think he's probably reflecting on that he recognizes that for a number of reasons, he has been destined to play this potentially pivotal role in American history.
With his lack of politics in his history, where you have other politicians that maybe were Senate or Congress, where they were privy to national secrets with security clearances and what's going on around the world more than others. He has not been exposed to any of that. Now he is. And the art of being a politician and dealing with not only the world, but here inside of the United States as well, that these security issues are going to change your frame of mind and the way that you think. Now he's being exposed to that. And there's no doubt that he is a very, very rich man. And could he be a card-carrying member of the elite and what that represents? And now being exposed to these national secrets, and certainly the question about contact with ET, that's one thing that he's going to get exposed to. Other CIA secrets. that it will start to change the way that he speaks and the way that he thinks. Because in a few minutes, he's going to get the security codes. He's going to get the nuclear football. He is elevated to another position that is singular in the world. Will that change him, and will he be exposed as being part of the elite? Everything that he speaks about about. Do you think things will change?
Well, actually, I'm kind of concerned in this area. I mean, he's a billionaire businessman, so he should be able to listen to others and be able to sit back and process strategic intelligence that he gets from military officers, from the intelligence community, and so forth, and from his cabinet officials. Now, if he has a personal defect that I'm concerned about, it's his ego. So, for example, we saw him dangle the Secretary of Stateship before arguably the most capable and charismatic Republican public servant of our era, which is Governor Mitt Romney, and then fail to ask Governor Romney, the 2012 standard bearer for the Republican Party, to be his Secretary of State. Instead, he brought in the chairman of Exxon. Now, we also saw his treatment of his vice presidential running mate. He was not even consulting with Mr. Pence about what their policy positions were, but he subordinated him in the iconography of his campaign by diminishing Mr. Pence, by citing him in his PR material in smaller case. It was Trump writ large, and then below that we saw the diminishment of Mr. Pence implied in putting Pence in smaller lettering. My concern about Donald Trump relative to the question that you're posing is, will he be able to suspend ego and listen not just to good advice, but to the phenomenally informed advice that he's going to be getting from people like the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff? Is he going to listen to his presidential daily brief from the CIA and delivered by a naval officer, or is he going to be tweeting? I mean, we have a real issue here as to whether he possesses the temperament to sit back and listen and make judicious decisions based on the high quality advice that he's going to be getting from within the government. I think that's a legitimate question right now, and I think elements of ego and of grandstanding, even the notion that he would continue to be tweeting after being president-elect, is a real concern, and that I think our chattering class in politics should really be paying attention to that issue and asking themselves, did he just make the right decision based on listening to others and being humble and avoiding hubris? I see some of that potentially dangerous hubris in Mr. Trump, especially because of his flamboyance and his success in business. You know, we have essentially just elected and now sworn in a titan of industry as president of the United States. That would be like electing Jay Gould or Leland Stanford president of the United States. And so this is an interesting moment, and let's see if certainly there seemed to be a sense of solemnity about him, but at the same time there's a common touch about President Trump that is both endearing and kind of frightening. He's a New Yorker. He really doesn't have a professional style of political delivery. He's not that talented as a speechifier. He uses his hands in kind of an awkward way. So this is an amateur in government, and he is a titan of industry at the same time. And he has a roaring ego. So I think this is something we really have to watch. Does the seriousness of what has just happened in his life, has it reached him so that he will become a bigger person and suspend ego and listen to the excellent advice and the strategic intelligence that's going to be given to him from all manner of people for the next 4 years? I certainly hope that he does.
It's certainly going to be interesting, and I call on all of us as Americans. Now, this is an international show, and we have a large international audience too as well, and we have a lot of Americans that are living overseas that listen to this show too as well. But I'll say this, and the world looks to us for leadership. That's just the way that it is. That is not me speaking. That's just the way that it is. But I call on all of us as Americans, and I had said this prior to the election, if Donald Trump, whoever gets elected, and I was very disappointed with our two choices this time around. But as Americans, we don't have a choice. And I call on all of us to, on this day, we have to, as Americans, rally around our president and support him because we don't have a choice. That's what it's our duty to do, just that. Now that the election cycle is over, now that's it. We are not Democrats or Republicans anymore. We're not fighting anymore with our families. We need to put all of our differences aside and unite and become Americans and support who is ever there. That is what we need to do. I'm not happy. I'm not, but I'm still an American, and my family and being an American and who I am, all of that comes first. And that's it. And this is a very historic day. A lot of things went down this week, Andy, that I've been talking about, and we're going to take a break here in just a second. And when we come back, we're going to be joined with a couple of special guests, and we'll get to that in just a bit. But the things that went down this week with Chelsea Manning getting her sentence commuted by Obama, how that involves Julian Assange directly over at WikiLeaks. He has said that he will now be extradited to the United States and face what he needed to face over here. He's going to live to his commitment and his promise with that. And then we have the World Economic Forum going on at the same time in Davos, Switzerland. No coincidence that is going down on this week, too, as well, where they are plotting in the background the world's future. And these are all crazy things that all happened this week. And this is time of change. And we are looking at all of this. WikiLeaks is a powerful force. And what this really means for the future of WikiLeaks and Julian Assange and how President Trump now deals with this. This is all big, world-changing, game-changing events. So with that, my co-host for today's show is Andy Basiago. Let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we will be joined by or with Alfred Webre, and we will talk about Andy's, what's the best way for me to put this, Andy? Andy's knowledge of the future from the past when it comes to Donald Trump and his election as the 45th president of the United States. We'll be right back with Alfred Webre and our co-host, Andy Basiago. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Stay with us.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
The station that talks the net. KGRA Radio.
Hello, you're listening to my main man, Jimmy Church, on jimmychurchradio.com.
Hi, this is Ray Sobbs here, repping the planet, and you're listening to my good friend, Jimmy Church, Fade to Black, on the Game Changer Network and the KGRA Digital Broadcast Station.
This is Toby Kebbell. You're listening to jimmychurchradio.com. Don't hurt me, Jimmy. I'm only little.
Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier. And this is Ari Gold. We're the Honey Brothers.
Yes.
We are of the Honey Brothers. Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier.
And I'm Ari Gold.
We're the Honey Brothers.
And you're listening to Jimmy Church.
The Revolution.
What's up, Fadernauts? Studio Dome loves Fade to Black and the F2B audience so much that they have put together the ultimate stereo Bluetooth system. They've done it just for you. Man, check this out. The Studio Dome SBB2 stereo system is here. It's featuring 2 Studio Boombox 2 SBB2 wireless Bluetooth speakers, packed in its own custom hardshell case. This Studio Dome system features the very latest in stereo Bluetooth technology. The 2 full-range boomboxes are in true wireless stereo. You've got to hear this. It's amazing. It's just $129 and use the promo code JCRTWS and you'll also get free shipping. It's simple. Just go to jimmychurchradio.com, click on the Studio Dome banner. Go Beckley Tepe.
Balance of Nature's fruits and veggies.
I was diagnosed with congestive heart failure. I went from being able to work 14, 16 hours a day with no problem to where I could barely walk a block to the store. I went on to the phytonutrients about 6 months ago, and within a couple of months, my medical doctor had cut my prescriptions down in a little bit smaller dosage. The next time I went back a month later, I walked into the doctor's office and he says, "My gosh, what's happened to you? You don't even look like the same person." He looked at my legs and the swelling had gone down. My blood pressure was down. The venous stasis ulcers that I had had on my legs for the last 4 or 5 years because of the poor circulation were all healed, and I'm feeling far better.
The new challenge will allow you to receive 2 months of Balance of Nature's fruits and veggies free, and we'll even ship them to you free. Call now for details. Call 1-800-246-8751 or go online to balanceofnature.com. Use promo code TALK.
This is Micah Hanks of the Gralien Report, and you're listening to Jimmy Church on Fade to Black, across the globe on the Game Changer Radio Network and the one and only KGRA Radio, The Planet.
All right, welcome back, Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church, on this very special live event, the inauguration of President Donald Trump, our 45th President of the United States. We heard his speech live. We heard his swearing in live. And our co-host today is Andy Basiago. And Andy, I want to bring in a very special guest, Alfred Webre, Alfred of Exopolitics. Alfred, are you there? Turn me down in the background. I can hear me in the background. Are you there?
Hello,
Alfred. Welcome to the program.
Yeah, you know, the call is fading in and out, so I'm going to call back in and see if I can get a better signal.
Well, no, you sound fine. We got you good. Okay, good. Alfred, did you see his speech?
Yes, you know, and I must say that I found it to be a transcendental speech by signal. That is, I think that there was that is, by my experience, a very high frequency speech. And that goes along with his astrology. I was told by a very accomplished astrologer, Mary Houston, that he has a Jupiter sun god, Gemini dog astrology chart, which is a very high frequency chart, as compared to Obama, which was more of a Neptunian chart. So he is more of a very high frequency person. And I think that this was a rededication of the U.S. body politic. Many people might say, paradoxically, to the God principle. Now, there might be many that would disagree with that, but that was the sense that I got.
Now, Andy, you had an experience years ago about the possibility of the CIA being involved in this election cycle. Tell us what happened.
Well, as I've described in a lot of my interviews, in the early 1970s, as a result of advances in time travel and remote sensing in time that were made by DARPA, the CIA acquired what we've been calling a quantum access capability. Quantum access is basically the ability to send individuals to the future or to propagate holograms of future events and thereby gather intelligence. And in quite a number of interviews, I've described my attendance at lunches in New Mexico where George H.W. Bush and George W. Bush had just been informed of their presidencies, another lunch that I attended at which a very young Bill Clinton was kind of psychologically adjusting to the fact that he would also one day be president of the United States. Now, regarding Mr. Trump, I had vaguer memories, but nonetheless a real memory of an incident in which Donald Trump was appearing on the Phil Donahue show in the late 1980s. And this was several years before my father's death in January of 1990. My father was a principal on the U.S. Time-Space Program, which was DARPA's Project Pegasus. He was essentially the chief technical consultant between the Ralph M. Parsons Company and the CIA on the theory and practice of Tesla teleportation, which he'd been working on as early as 1956 at the Thomas A. Edison Research Laboratory in West Orange, New Jersey. And then he was brought into Project Pegasus in the mid-60s, around 1966, when he went to work for Parsons Jordan Corporation. And my dad, at that point, he had had a number of heart attacks. He had had 2 open-heart surgeries. He had had a replacement of his mitral valve with a robotic mitral valve, a prosthetic mitral valve. He had 11 bypasses at that point. So he was basically a heart patient who was retired and spending a lot of time really just taking it easy. And one day he was prone on a sofa in our television room. He was basically laying on his side. And Mr. Trump came on the Donahue show, and my dad quickly sat up. And I really saw him only do that several times. For example, one time Dr. Harold Agnew, who was the federal science administrator of Project Pegasus, came on a PBS documentary about the Manhattan Project. And my dad sort of quickly sat up and took notice of Harold because we knew him quite well on Project Pegasus and interacted with him substantially in the secret corridors of the defense technical community. Right. And so when Trump appeared with Phil Donahue, I said, Dad, what's the big deal? You know, Trump's just sort of a wealthy businessman and sort of a, you know, sort of a, you know, a grandstander, kind of a big ego. And he said, I know, son, but he's one of the future presidents that we identified. Now, I held that information back. I mean, I didn't broadcast it widely in 2016 because I was a fellow candidate of Mr. Trump, and I would have completely disqualified at least continuing as a candidate if I revealed that as a result of being the son of a Defense Department engineer who had liaison to the information that was being collected about the future, I had prior notification of the Trump presidency. But as I'm certain Alfred can confirm when we bring him back on the air, I did share that information with Alfred, and he ran a piece about that at a time in the Trump-Clinton contest for president when finally all of the candidates were narrowed down to essentially, unjustly, to just the Republican and Democratic standard bearers, that I had shared with him months in advance the fact that Donald Trump was identified as a future American president by the CIA. My father was aware of that fact, and my father imparted that to me, and that while I wasn't broadcasting that fact during this campaign because I was vying for the presidency myself, that nonetheless is the historical record. And in fact, when Alfred interviewed me and then ran that piece, he interviewed me after having previously discussed it with me. that piece ran at a time when the belief that Donald Trump could be elected was almost zero in the country. I think his approval rating, his support was down to like 33%. And the mainstream media was just beginning to gang up against him and to support Hillary Clinton in a way that ultimately sort of backfired. It was so vigorous in its assault upon Mr. Trump and its support for the Democratic standard bearer, Secretary Clinton. So I just want to make it clear that I did that interview with Alfred at a time in this campaign when the notion that Trump could take the presidency in 2016 was not held by many people in the country, and certainly by no pundits. They were essentially doing a pre-coronation of Hillary Clinton as president. And so I shared that information with Alfred again. He interviewed me again about what I previously stated. And Alfred ran that piece. I think he'd have to tell us when, but I think maybe it was in September of 2016.
Yeah, let me jump in here really quick. Alfred, what was the date in this piece, and what do you remember about it? Share that with us.
There is some outside interference on this call. So what is coming through is could you repeat the question? It's very difficult for me to understand as there's some mechanism that is breaking up your words.
Okay, well, you sound fine. You sound clear.
No, right. I understand.
Okay, Alfred, when was the piece written that you wrote about Trump and the CIA with Andy? I want you to share that with us.
Yeah, sure. We initially wrote that in June of 2016, and that was around the time of the GOP convention. And then there was the Democratic convention in July. And then there was a discussion that went back and forth. In fact, I went and had discussions with various advisors and psychics as to whether it was whether we should bear the responsibility of making this information public, or whether we should allow the American public to make their own decision. Because if we had made that information public in July, we might have affected the outcome of the election, and thereby we would have taken away their free will choice. And so what occurred was that toward the end of the election, right about a week before the election, around the mid-1990s, somehow quantum access information from the U.S. secret time travel program had been leaked into various cultural reference programs, such as the secret Illuminati cards. And there were two references, one the Back to the Future movie and the other the Illuminati cards. And in the Back to the Future movie, there were two items that were leaked there. One was that the Chicago Cubs would win the World Series as Donald Trump rises to power. And in the week before the election, the Chicago Cubs won the World Series and as Donald Trump rose to power. And that was depicted in the 1995 Back to the Future 2 movie. So at that point, I felt that morally we could release the story that we had written in June of 2016 without affecting anybody's free will. So we released the story on November 4th, 2016, and the election was on November 8th, 2016. But we could have released it in June of 2016, but we didn't want to take the responsibility of depriving people of their free will.
Right now, Donald Trump, everybody, is signing a stack of presidential orders right now live. He's got his family standing around him, and it's interesting. I wish I knew what he was signing, because it is a large stack, and they're single pages too, by the way. They're just one signature after another, and I almost want to jump in live to see what they're talking about here. Andy, I want to switch back to you really quick. When you got this knowledge and you remembered everything that had happened with your father, why didn't you have this go forward in June? I understand Alfred's take on this. I thoroughly do, but releasing it on the 4th, 4 days before the election cycle, wouldn't have had any effect. Why not just go forward with it in June?
Well, I had been cooperating with Alfred as a journalist. In other words, he had been covering what I knew about the U.S. quantum access capability going back many years. And so I essentially had a journalist-source relationship with him, in which during the course of the 2016 campaign, in fact, after I announced on Coast to Coast AM for president on December 19th of 2015, we had a number of discussions about the fact that my father did indicate that Donald Trump was a future president. I think what Alfred's describing is that he wrote it up in the summer, and I remember he had called me again to just get some of the details. I estimated that it was around 1987 or 88 that the Donahue Show had come on our television at our home in Southern California, and my dad had made the statement that the CIA had identified Trump as a future president. And then the decisions to hold it or not, I think pretty much were Alfred's. I was engrossed in my campaign, and I knew that if I, let's say, did a high-profile interview, like let's say we're interviewed by you as a host on Coast to Coast AM or another leading broadcast like that, I might then be pressured to leave the race because I knew who the winner was going to be. At least the one person. There's actually two dimensions to this. Let me explain. It's actually a deeper political matter than we've been describing it. We knew that I had prior knowledge of, or the CIA, that is, had prior knowledge of the Bill Clinton presidency, and my father had a meeting with Hillary before she even met Bill Clinton. That was in the summer of 1969. And that was a couple of weeks before she went to Yale Law School. In other words, we had a meeting with Hillary that I think was a setup. It was just a happenstance meeting. Apparently, when we were camping in New England, she was camping with a couple of her girlfriends from Wellesley. But she had described to us how she was going on to Yale Law School in the fall. We know from different works about the Clintons, including Roger Morris's Partners in Power, that she was bragging as a student at Yale Law School that her quote-unquote boyfriend, W.J. Clinton, is going to be president someday. And Alfred and I had discussions about the fact that Hillary was the only remaining leading candidate in the race, together with Trump. And it didn't seem like she would win. I mean, we could extrapolate that she would not win, not only because Trump had been identified as a future president, but because she never had been. And she had the quantum access information that her future husband and the future president of the United States, Bill Clinton, would reach the White House. Okay, so this was really a dichotomous thing where when it finally came down to a Trump-Clinton contest, we knew two things as a result of my connection and my late father's connection to the U.S. time-space program and the quantum access that it afforded. One, that Hillary never made any statement and there was never any evidence that she knew she was going to be president, but simultaneously there was knowledge that Trump was going to be president. So we had a number of discussions about that after I announced. There wasn't really a formal decision that was made not to go forward with it, but just personally, separate and apart from my interview with Alfred, I wasn't writing about it. I wasn't posting about it on Facebook or doing any interviews about it because I wanted to stay in the race and continue to do things like promote my 100 proposals and other things that I thought were improving the process. But then finally, when Alfred told me he was going with the piece right there before the election, I thought it was earlier than 4 days before the election, but when he finally made the decision to go forward with that lead, that the CIA has known for decades that Donald John Trump was a future president, I basically acquiesced, and I had no objection to going forward at that point because it was clear that I wasn't going to win. I mean, I ended up gathering about $20,000 in donations, and I think my running mate Karen Kinnis and I got about 20,000 votes. So I was proud to participate. It was a great life experience to participate in running for president. But when ultimately push came to shove, and Alfred informed me he was going forward with the peace, I kind of, sort of signed off on the concept, because I do believe that the American people have a right to know that the constitutional way by which we select our president has been essentially undermined by time travel.
I want to jump in really quick and ask Alfred because this is what Alfred does, Exopolitics. Alfred, what do you think President Trump is going to do with the exposure about ET and alien contact with us? And when he's presented with this secret information, how is he going to move forward? What is he going to do with it?
Yeah. I beg your indulgence and that of your audience. I can't even listen to the radio program here in Canada, and they're making your dialogue unintelligible over the phone. Jimmy, could you ask the question once again, just very slowly?
My question is this, Alfred. What do you think President Trump is going to do with the secrets about ET contact here, and how is he going to move forward with that secret knowledge once it's exposed to him?
Well, given his past actions, this is what I would surmise, and it's an educated guess. It's not, I don't know what he is going to do, but what he will probably do. What I've observed in the past, and this goes along with, and this is based upon my observation of what he did in the 2012 presidential primary, when Andy and I completed a PowerPoint and an expose of Barack Obama, Barry Soetoro Soebarka, as a lifelong CIA asset and a Manchurian candidate that had been constructed going back to 1971, and through his mother, who was a CIA operative in Indonesia, and his grandparents, who were lifelong CIA operatives also. And we gave that information to Sheriff Joe Arpaio, who was conducting a truth-oriented search at that time. And Donald Trump was cooperating with Sheriff Joe Arpaio. And Donald Trump went forward to New Hampshire with the same set of information that we had, and that we had given to Joe Arpaio. Now, I don't know whether Donald Trump got it from Joe Arpaio. So if that's the case, Donald Trump has been willing to take information from the truth movement that Andy and I have, and others have been developing. And so I feel very positive that if members of the CIA Mars Jump Room program and of Project Pegasus and the Quantum Access program are able to reach the Trump team and say, look, this information has to go public, then I believe that there very well may be that this information very well may be made public, as in fact Andy has set out in his 100 proposals. So I remain optimistic, and I would urge Andy, and I'm willing to work with him on this, to approach the Trump team, because we already did it in 2012 and it was successful. So I think that this is a time for the truth movement to go forward on disclosure for quantum access and on disclosure for the exopolitical. Because unlike Barack Obama, Barry Soebarka Sotoro, Mr. Trump is committed to the truth, and he has acted on it so far, given his record in 2012. So that would be my opinion.
I want to thank you, Alfred, for stopping by here on this very, very special day and giving us your insight on all of this. Alfred Webre, and, of course, his website is exopolitics.com. Thank you, Alfred, and have a great, safe rest of your 2017.
Thank you very much.
Alfred Webre, everybody. Our co-host today, I just said tonight, is Andy Basiago. Andrew, we'll see you in a couple of short minutes. We're going to take a break right here. More special guests coming up. The inauguration of President Donald Trump. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Stay with us, everybody. Great day. Follow us on Twitter at JChurchRadio. I'll be right back.
Way out here, we listen to Jimmy Church.
You're listening to Fade to Black.
Always on the edge of the hottest alternative talk. Jimmy Church with Fade to Black. KGRARadio.com.
¿Qué tal, mis amigos? Yo soy Mario Carson, el tiburón, y los invito para que escuchen a mi buen amigo Jimmy Church Radio. ¡Claro que sí!
You get a Zeepa. You get a Zeepa, you hear me?
What's the name when you snort? It's Zeepa, Zeepa. It's the thing we're craving for. It's Zeepa, Zeepa. You can't sleep all night. Zeepa, Zeepa. And wake up feeling right. It's Zeepa, Zeepa. Makes me love my husband more, 'cause he no longer snores. Zeepa, Zeepa, it's Zeepa, Zeepa.
Zeepa's different than any other device because it actually works. A lot of these other devices, they just bring the jaw forward, that's it. However, the thing that makes Zeepa different, it stabilizes the tongue, basically, with this elastic band. But right here, Jimmy's telling you that this is a unique device. Go to Zeepa now, buy it, and stop the snoring. Get a Zeepa, ZYPPAH.com. Zeepa.com. That's ZYPPAH.com.
Oh, fall. My favorite time of year. Cooler temperatures and, well, let's be honest, layers. Lots and lots of layers. Look, I get it. We all have that favorite hoodie. Matter of fact, I've got a few favorite hoodies. You should wear yours. Enjoy it. I do. But I stay focused on my health year-round. And for me, I take Nature's Youth RSF from nature'syouth.com. Nature's Youth RSF from nature'syouth.com. I eat right, control my portion sizes, still maintain a commitment to regular fitness, and I get plenty of rest, and I take Nature's Youth RSF. It's okay to cover up your beach body for a few months, but don't just forget about it. Nature's Youth understands exactly what it means to provide top-quality health products, and Nature's Youth customers not only improve their health, they know they're also providing their body with the right nourishment to maintain peak performance levels and fight the aging process. So layer up and get started today with Nature's Youth RSF. nature'syouth.com. Simple to use, even simpler to order. Go to nature'syouth.com. That's nature'syouth.com.
You are listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
I'm Reese Evans. You're listening to Jimmy Church. This is Revolution. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution is on radio. Ciao.
Welcome back, Fade to Black, our special live event, the inauguration of President Donald Trump, the 45th President of the United States of America, and I call on all of us to unite. Now, we're always American, but from this day forward, it's been a stressful 2016. So that's it. It's over. It's January 20th. Barack Obama has gotten on the helicopter. He's flown to Andrews. He's on his way to Palm Springs. President Trump has now signed all of his executive orders with a bunch of fresh pens that were passed out to everybody in the room. I wonder, what do you do with a presidential pen? Do you frame it? What do you do? Do you put it in a drawer? Do you know, what does it say on the pen? Right? Does it say this is the pen that Donald Trump signed his first executive orders on January 20th? It's very interesting to me. Now, with that, our co-host today is Andy Basiago. And Andrew, we're going to get into some other stuff here in just a second, but I want to. There's a couple of things that are pretty strange with today. Today, happy birthday to Buzz Aldrin. Today, it's Buzz Aldrin's birthday. He's 87, and Paul Stanley of Kiss today is 65. So they get to party, right, on the day that Donald Trump gets brought in as president. Pretty strange. Didn't that feel a little bit weird to you?
Certainly odd. I haven't seen Buzz since August 18th of 1980, and that's when he met with William B. Stillings and I at the campground on the north shore of Lake Siskiyou in Northern California, now near Mount Shasta, and described to us how we were soon going to be doing something he had done a few years back, and that's go off planet. And he advised us it was going to be the experience of a lifetime. So, in fact, I had the privilege of meeting astronaut Aldrin when I was 18 years old. I haven't seen him since, although I just recently made the acquaintance of one of his ex-wives, and she said, Andy, I know that you were cheated after time traveling for the country and going off planet, but you know something? So were the Mercury, Gemini, and Apollo astronauts. And she described how when Buzz was forging his career as a public speaker and as the second man to land on the moon, to set foot on the moon, and trying to keep alive American leadership in applied science and space exploration, which we can certainly, on his birthday, thank Buzz for, in addition to developing the mathematical model by which we landed on a moving planet, namely the moon. We should take note of the fact that there seems to have been a common pattern that the U.S. astronauts, the corps that Buzz Aldrin was a part of, and that the U.S. chrononaut corps that I was a part of, in which apparently they were begging us financially so that none of us would grandstand after we had our very privileged experiences on behalf of the U.S. space program and the time space program. And I was quite shocked to learn that because, Buzz has got a number of years on me, a good 25 years, and I kind of felt growing up as a child of the space age who ended up getting involved in the secret space program that the astronauts who had served in the overt, publicly heralded space program had lived a kind of a privileged existence and hadn't been cheated financially or in terms of the benefits that they were promised.
Right.
But I now learned just in the last week that, in fact, they were as well.
President Obama and Michelle have just walked through the doors of Air Force One, and they are getting ready to take off for their last flight on Air Force One. I can't help but think that Obama probably feels a sense of relief. The pressures of being the president of the United States. You know, I don't know how many hours of sleep you get a night, but it's got to be down to, you know, a couple, I would think. You are always awake. You're always stressed out. And, yeah, you enjoy all of those benefits and the things that come with being the president of the United States. But this is his last flight on Air Force One, and he can relax. I'm sure that's what's going through his mind, but he's getting on the plane. Also, check this out, Andy. We forgot one thing that was a big part of American history that happened on this day back in 1981. Minutes after Ronald Reagan's inauguration as the 40th president of the United States. It's weird. We're only at number 45. It seems like Reagan was so long ago, right? But 40th president of the United States. The 52 U.S. captives held at the U.S. Embassy in Tehran, in Iran, are released. And that ended the 444-day Iran hostage crisis. And that happened on this day in 1981. And that was a huge event, wasn't it?
It certainly was. But if I might jump back to what we could presuppose that, or suppose that former President Obama, it's interesting to even use that phraseology, must be feeling now in terms of the emotional and psychological release of the pressures of the presidency. My favorite historical citation on that subject comes from Harry S. Truman, who commented later that when he learned that Franklin Delano Roosevelt had died and that he was going to shortly be sworn in as President of the United States, he said, quote, "I felt like the stars and the planets in the heavens had fallen to earth and been placed on my shoulders, and that my feet were being driven into the ground." So imagine the psychological gravity of that.
Right.
I mean, there's two things that I've thought about in contemplating the prediction that was made by CIA that I myself am a future president. Perhaps I will never be so because of my truth campaign about these issues. Perhaps I will be. There's two things. One is the realization that once you're elected president, the Secret Service is in your life for the rest of your life.
Right.
Which means you have permanent guests in your life who are federal agents protecting you and your family members and close friends and so forth in an ordinary social context. The other thing is just dealing with the immense psychological pressure of the office itself. I know I'm capable of that, but I think frequently of President Truman's statements and just the gravity and the poetry of that description. It's quite overwhelming when you think about how difficult it must be to be president on a daily basis. And so that's why our thoughts and prayers are with Mr. Trump today for that reason, among others.
I'll give you another presidential fact. Check this out. Benjamin Franklin proposed a phonetic alphabet that got rid of the letters C, J, Q, W, X, and Y, but the American public refused to adopt it. Did you know that? You're a presidential historian.
I didn't know that, but I do know that the German influence on America has been historically submerged as a result of Worlds War I and II, and in fact, German almost became our national language at the Constitutional Convention. It lost to English by only one vote.
Right.
And we don't think of ourselves as a Germanic country. In fact, the German contribution to the United States may have been the fundamental one. For example, 22% of American surnames are German. So ethnically, if you isolate any activity in the United States from people who are competing in particular sports, or who are enrolled at particular universities, or who are serving in our military, or doctors, dentists, lawyers, what have you, the German contribution is always there because that's actually the biggest ethnic group in the country, and we almost became a German-speaking country as a result of that abiding contribution. I knew that Franklin had proposed some strange things. He was a very intellectually busy man. I think he may have been barking up the wrong tree, but I've heard similar stories about Franklin when he was proposing certain innovations that were never undertaken.
It sounds like your dog in the background certainly has an opinion about Trump, too, as well. It's pretty interesting.
Actually, I'm staying at a friend's, and my friends have 3 dogs. I've been trying to find strategic locations here in the house where I can avoid their barking, and they were just let out into the back porch here.
Yeah, there you
go. Some are now in the backyard, and some are in the house. So
not a big deal.
That,
yeah, we're dog lovers here, man. It matters not.
Certainly, I love dogs.
Yeah, one of the most.
In fact, I follow the Sinatra doctrine to never trust people. What did he say? He said, never trust people who don't like dogs.
Yeah.
Who don't like dogs and ice cream or something like that.
Yeah, well, that's I live by that mantra. One of the most significant things, though, about Trump's election is that people ran that campaign and won. Against the mainstream media, all of the news giants around the world, and I was so shocked when every campaign, and it just doesn't matter, pick a year, you have all of these offices in all of the cities across the country that is staffed, and it cost a lot of money, and the political ads and the print ads and that huge thing. Trump had none of that. I don't even know if he had local offices at all. I don't think he did. It's a remarkable thing to achieve.
Let me cite again this quantum access connection to highlight that issue. My father was a Nixon Republican from rural Pennsylvania, so he had his prejudices, and he was essentially right-leaning. But I know he had told me one time that he voted for Harry Truman and John F. Kennedy for president, despite the fact that they were Democrats, because he loved his country and he wanted the best man to win the presidency. And when he sat up and took notice of Trump, he was beaming as if we could possibly extrapolate from his behavior that Trump was going to have a very positive impact on this country. And so I think we really have to take notice here of what has happened. Even though Trump is a plutocrat, indeed a billionaire, and has certain personal defects, his campaign was an amateur's quest for the nomination and for the presidency. So something truly signal has happened in our nation's history and in the history of the presidency. A powerful outsider has crashed the barrier of the Washington Beltway and seized the presidency. And so this really is an epochal moment in the history of our country and in the history of the presidency on that basis. And let me just say parenthetically, Sinatra's statement was that you shouldn't trust anybody who didn't drink or like dogs. So for what it's worth, that was actually his statement. But still, I follow that Sinatra doctrine as well, I might add. But yes, I mean, this is a special moment, and I agree with your surmise that, look, in the study of history and in biography, we tend to focus on the effect that people have on events, but we forget that the true study of history is also the effect of events on people. And so we have to allow the possibility that the gravity and the magnitude and the exclusivity of what has just happened in Donald Trump's life is going to transform him into a bigger and a better person. We're all fallible. Nobody is perfect. We are all on our personal spiritual journey towards, ultimately, I believe, over many lifetimes, to an ascended state of existence. But in this small little life that we live here down on earth, all of us make mistakes. All of us have imperfections. We are all fallible. And we tend to focus on that when people are running for the presidency. I couldn't believe some of the things that were being said about me. I mean, I've lived a good life. I've lived a Christic life. I've tried to do right by people within my powers to do so. And I've abided by the moral and the criminal law. But as a result of announcing an independent candidate for the presidency, I was accused by one pundit of raping and killing 111 children. Now, look at the sort of more higher-end criticisms that were made of Trump by more sophisticated pundits than that. Ultimately, post-Watergate, it's almost impossible to run for the presidency with your well-earned reputation intact. So I hope that to the extent that Mr. Trump is an outsider who has now been sworn in as president, and in that sense, despite his wealth, is a tribune of the people and their interests, that will examine that mean-spirited tendency in our politics and our national life and will end it, because that wasn't part of the American character. That was part of the worst aspects of politics. I mean, Abraham Lincoln was called a monkey. Okay, go to the Lincoln Memorial and read that beautiful statement behind the statue of Lincoln. In this temple, as in the hearts of the people whose union he saved, the memory of Abraham Lincoln shall endure forever. And yet when he was president, he was drawn in political cartoons and called a monkey. Okay, so it's to some extent, yes, that kind of mean-spiritedness and pettiness has always been part of presidential politics in our country, but we have to re-examine whether it's the pervading style of public life in general, and we should really put an end to that. I didn't take notes during President Trump's inaugural address, but he did make a reference to that. He made a reference to the fact that all of us who are Americans have something in common, and that's our joint citizenship as citizens of this great country.
I have
live with an awareness of that.
I have been to the Lincoln Memorial, and when you walk up those steps and you walk inside of it, you walk, past the pillars, and you go up to the statue of him sitting in the chair, and you read that. It is such a powerful, moving experience, and I will say this, as an American, if you can, I think we all should, make it to Washington, D.C. and walk around and check out the memorials and stuff. But go to the Lincoln Memorial. It will flip you out. It is so strong and so powerful. And there's something that happens to you there. You walk down those steps after doing that, and you are affected emotionally. And you can't help, as an American, not to be affected emotionally.
Right. And in fact, Abraham Lincoln was the abolitionist candidate for president. His election did spark the secession of the Confederacy, and he paid for that decision to oppose slavery with his life. He was an American Christ figure in that sense. Think of his campaign song, Lincoln and Liberty, success to the old-fashioned notion that men are created all free, and down with the day of the despot, wherever his stronghold may be. Lincoln's campaign song, Lincoln and Liberty, was written by the Hutchinson Singers of New Hampshire, the Granite State, who were arch abolitionists. And his election and his swearing in as president caused 13 southern states to secede from the Union so that they could perpetuate this enslavement of other human beings. And we fought a civil war in which afterwards the greatest industry in cities and small towns alike throughout the United States was the manufacture of prosthetic arms and legs for the men, predominantly white men, who lost limbs but in addition, the black soldiers, who lost limbs during the Civil War. We fought a bloody civil war in which hundreds of thousands of our fellow citizens died for the cause of union, but also for the cause of abolition. And we tend to forget that there are people writing books indicating that it was a war of northern hostility,
right,
and that Lincoln was a great tyrant who was trying to suspend states' rights and impose the diktat of the federal government on the southern states. That's ridiculous. Lincoln ran as the abolition president.
Well, and what's interesting here is we went through so much of those types of attacks that were brought against Lincoln. We went through that in 2016 with both Trump and Hillary. The attacks and the things that were verbalized both in not only the press but the public, and in video that Lincoln didn't have that back then. Like with Lincoln, how do we stop those sorts of attacks? How do we do that?
It's not in my 100 proposals, but maybe it could be proposal 101. Maybe we could, we've done great things as a country by trying to frame the truth as a statement in words, in plain spoken words. The Declaration, the Constitution, all of the letters of our great American civilization. What about framing a pledge that everybody seeking public office would take, that they would focus on the issues? As a candidate in this election, I was interviewed by a number of leading news organizations, including, I would commend the BBC. I was interviewed at length by the BBC World Media, and I was asked legitimate questions, and I was asking people to think. Again, it didn't enter my 100 proposals, but it could be the 101st, and that is, think of the worst of those Trump-Clinton debates, and then go take a look at any of the Kennedy-Nixon debates. Nixon and Kennedy were talking about the affairs that were before the country and that the next president would face. In fact, throughout the 4 debates, they were frequently saying that the next president will have to resolve the controversy over Kamoy and Matsu. Okay? In other words, they were focused as brilliant young senators on what was right the country was confronting at that time. And could you imagine Kennedy or Nixon saying to the other, you better hope I'm not elected president because you're going to be in jail.
Right.
Which is what Mr. Trump said to Madam Clinton at a time when I think that kind of maybe even sparked the ultimate momentum that carried him into the White House, because he seemed to be delivering a body blow, kind of like the last statement at that time in the campaign where she had been perceived as being a criminal. Okay, but imagine an earlier time, such as 1960, when the idea that one of the major party candidates would have stated that you better hope I'm not elected because you're going to be in jail, that wouldn't even have been thought of by Kennedy or Nixon.
No, but it was that's what happens in other countries, right? That's what happens. Right, but it's not supposed to happen here. I want to ask you this.
But
let me ask you this really quick before we head to the break. I want to give you time to answer. I see a profound personality shift with every single president that walks into the Oval Office for the first time. They're in there for a couple of hours, and then they walk out. They walk in smiling. It's the inauguration, right? It's the big day. They walk in smiling, waving. It's all good. They walk in, something happened, 2 hours, and then they come out and they are frowning. They are changed. They are shaken to their core. Trump has a very strong personality. Are we going to see that same change in a couple of hours when he comes back out of the Oval Office and walks down in front of the White House?
I think we will. And let me just say that this comes up a lot. And in the post-Kennedy assassination, post-Watergate generation that we're living in, it's often said kind of glibly that kind of morbid fixation or serious demeanor, what have you, results from the fact that they're then threatened, and they're shown some enhanced copy of the Zapruder film or something, and their lives are threatened, and it's made clear to them that they don't stand atop the top of the government, and they're X number of security levels below top secret, and so forth. I don't believe that's the case. I believe, in fact, that the president is at the top of the intelligence funnel, if you will, and the serious demeanor that follows being sworn in is they start to be briefed on the seriousness of the different threats facing the country, and they become very alarmed about how serious the office is that they've just acquired. I don't believe all of my activities for the United States government convince me that the president is not out of the loop. He's not being arrogated to, that we have preserved the constitutional authority of president as chief executive. And I think that kind of seriousness and even the strain that we start to see in the president's face is because he is simply processing all of the information that's reaching him at that point as a person who sits atop the executive branch of the government. And he is briefed, and he is not being arrogated to. In fact, the president can arrest anybody who would arrogate him. He can just call the Secret Service or some federal marshals into the White House and say, remove this person. He's just threatened me, or what have you. So the notion that the president is easily intimidated and can be compromised and blackmailed and browbeaten into assuming a lesser role in the government and being dictated to. I believe that that's a widespread public myth, very much like the belief that President Kennedy ever gave a secret society speech. That secret society speech was just a run-of-the-mill anti-Soviet, anti-communist speech that made a passing reference to the anti-Masonic movement in the United States. It was like many that JFK gave as a candidate and as president. So I think in a similar way, we have to attack this myth that the president somehow has been permanently compromised and is arrogated to by more powerful people in the permanent secret government, and that information is regularly kept back from him. That is, in fact, those are indictable offenses.
With Trump, throughout his life and his career, he is very rarely told no. He's not used to that. Being the president of the United States, and, some say, the president of the free world, the leader of the free world, and I get that. Is he going to be surprised about the limits of his power? And will there be somebody to tell him no? And how will he react when that happens?
I don't know, but there's two types of leadership. There's the leader who listens to everybody and then does what he's being told. And then there's the leader like Lincoln who listened to everybody and then did what he wanted to do. So Trump is definitely more like the Lincoln style of leadership, where he will be, as much as possible, doing what he ultimately thinks he should do rather than just the general direction of what he's being told. But my problem with that, and this again is why I've been so consternated during this president-elect period, is he didn't put, for example, he didn't do what Lincoln did, which was to put some of his leading opponents in his cabinet. I mean, Lincoln's entire cabinet were all of his political adversaries who then became his advisors. He would listen to every one of them as the estimable men that they were, and then do what he thought he should do as president. I had hoped to see the composition of that kind of Trump cabinet, including one in which Gingrich, Giuliani, and Romney would have been included as three individuals that I consider estimable figures in the Republican Party and estimable advisors to Trump. But instead, he did something. He showed, again, more of this pattern, also with his vice presidential election and the subordination of the way that he featured Vice President Pence in his campaign. I think he has a tendency to surround himself not so much with yes men, but he does want to be the brightest light in the room. And so there is an ego issue here that we're really going to have to watch to see whether he'll overcome that as president. I hope that he does.
Let's take a break right there. This is our inauguration special event live with Andy Basiago. He's co-hosting with me this morning, one of the most important days in our country's history. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. This is Fade to Black. I'm going to open up the phone lines next. Stay with us.
Alfred the Metal God on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
KGRA Radio. Intelligent talk.
You've probably heard about all the great benefits of goat milk soap, but did you know some companies take shortcuts? At Old New England Soap, we make our organic goat's milk soap using 36% goat's milk. That's 17% more than most others. Our bars are larger, so they last longer, producing lots of lather packed with vitamins. And our soap is a natural moisturizer that smooths dry and damaged skin. Order online at oldnesoap.com. That's oldnesoap.com. You've tried the rest. Now try the best. oldnesoap.com.
Water-based soaps on supermarket shelves use harsh chemical acids to break down dead skin cells. And that's just not good for you. At Old New England Soap, our soaps are made without chemical ingredients, contain no alcohol or petroleum products, and use 85% organic materials and carry the USDA's organic certification. Try some today. Go to oldnesoap.com. That's oldnesoap.com. oldnesoap.com.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7 with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
If you have sciatica, then you know all about the crippling pain that travels from your lower back down your leg when a spasm occurs. It's brutal. In fact, it's enough to take your breath away. Dr. Zhang's Sciatica Nerve Cream helps relieve persistent, shooting pains associated with the sciatic nerve in the lower back and legs. This natural, homeopathic cream contains the most potent ingredients to soothe even the most excruciating pain associated with sciatica. Stop the pain now. Ask for Dr. Zhang's Sciatica Nerve Cream at your local health food store or go online to trasknutrition.com.
Would you like relief from muscle pain, headaches, and discomfort to sleep better, have more energy during the day, and just feel naturally amazing? Fibromalic can help. Its blend of malic acid and magnesium can provide pain relief and comfort for those who experience fibromyalgia. It helps your body absorb more oxygen, and it works quickly for a significant reduction in pain within 48 hours, all without a prescription. Ask for Fibromalic at health and vitamin shops or shop fibromalic.com.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi available, you can still listen to every minute of Fade to Black by just calling 605-562-4482. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan and no extra cost if you have unlimited minutes. Just call 605-562-4482. You can listen to me, Jimmy Church, on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Go Beckley Tappy.
You want to know a secret? I love ponies. I really love ponies. I'm serious. I couldn't stay sane without ponies to brush.
Why Fade to Black? Because you never got that pony, damn it.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. Our very special live inauguration special event today with our co-host Andy Basiago. Very, very important day in American history. Andy, do you feel the vibe? I mean, this is a pretty big day, isn't it?
Yes. And as somebody who ran in 2016, I've been watching it and imagining what it would have liked to have been to participate in it as the winner of the race. And, for that reason, my thoughts and prayers are with President Trump and Vice President Pence. It must be overwhelming
to
realize the responsibility that they now have and how the world is going to be looking to them to do the right thing for our country and for the world. That's a mighty thing.
I'm watching right now live footage of riot police facing protesters trying to block the parade route right now in Washington, D.C. I'm going to say that is a significant crowd, a lot of riot police there, and it looks like it's trying to kick off. A lot of this is motivated by the media too as well, but nonetheless, it is. I don't think I've ever seen this on an inauguration day, protests like this going down. And you want to take some phone calls?
Yes, I'd like to just add parenthetically regarding the security around the president. We've also never seen a president sworn in with a military honor guard behind him.
Yeah, I caught that.
I think he had some physical protection behind him there on the stage, which was probably an enhanced, even beyond an ordinary Secret Service presence. It looked like perhaps that the honor guard had been stationed there to surround him in the event of some type of attempt on his life.
I was thinking
and that would have been most unfortunate.
I was thinking it was the rain. They were there with umbrellas.
Oh, that might have been it.
Yeah,
that might have been it. Too,
could have been. Let's go to the phones. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black.
Hi, this is Mark from Bridgeport.
Hi, Mark from Bridgeport. How are you today?
Hi.
Say hi to Andy Basiago.
Hi, Andy. To both of
Hi,
you,
Mark.
Great men, thank you for your enormous contributions you're making. It's just remarkable. So thank
welcome,
you.
Sir. Thank you.
Andy, I have a question. It's always been my belief, I guess a belief that Americans dislike extremists, and they would never elect one as president. And so my question is, do you think that he was perceived as an extremist and elected as that, or, just any thoughts you have on that idea of an extremist having just been sworn in as president?
Yeah, Mark, that's a really good point. I'm going to jump in front of Andy on that, but I want to thank you for the phone call. But my take is I just think we were tired. We were just tired. We were exhausted with the status quo. Andy, I'm going to let you jump in. And Mark, thank you for the phone call.
You're welcome.
I do agree that we're a conservative people in the sense that even when we've been under liberal governance, and we've been under both, that we tend to be a people that, because we were a frontier people that became a settled people, we have a moderate tendency that's pretty profound in our common culture. Now, as for Mr. Trump, I think he's another moderate. I think he's coming in promising a new populism. But if you reduce his message and his essence to its basic elements, he's essentially saying, I'm going to look out for you, the American people. And that's not an extremist message. So while some of his behavior was extreme, and I think the result during the campaign of overexcitement on his part, and while he may have had elements in his demeanor that convinced his opponents, those who would be prone not to vote for him anyway for ideological reasons, that he is an extremist, I certainly don't view him as an extremist. And in fact, let me just say this as somebody who tried to bring intellectual depth to the issues being discussed in 2016. One of the things that really amazed me as a student of American history and the presidency, and as a candidate for the presidency in 2016, is really the superficiality of the entire process. There was very little extremeness of any kind, and there was very little depth to the consideration of the issues before the country. So I don't even think that Mr. Trump had the opportunity, in the way that the election was structured, to even articulate extreme positions. I think he was misguided in some areas. For example, by convincing the American people that he was arguably anti-immigrant and anti-Hispanic, he was essentially ostracizing the demographic element in American society that is sustaining it economically. If we did not have predominantly Hispanic immigrant labor, both legal and illegal, our economy would collapse. And as a businessman, a very wealthy businessman who employs Hispanic laborers, he should have come clean with us and recognized that fact. So I think he took certain policy positions that convinced his opponents that he was an extremist. But I think if you look at the text of his inaugural address, he's simply making a vow to the American people to look out for our interests first. He's going to be an America First president, and I don't think the extremist that some of his opponents thought he is, who even took to the streets to protest his election. I was kind of offended by those protests in the sense that, look, he was not elected as the result of some kind of illegal coup d'etat. He was elected as a result of the combined will of the American people, as expressed through our orderly process of selecting a new president. And in that sense, the protesters are offending not just those who voted for Mr. Trump, but everybody who voted or decided not to vote, basically all of us. This was a lawful election. And to protest his administration before he's become president, I think was an offense to our basic spirit of Americanism. But I don't view Mr. Trump as an extremist, and I don't think he will govern as such.
I am watching the protests now, tear gas flying, a lot of it, and the media that is there at the front lines too, as well, is bearing the brunt of this tear gas. It's all over the streets. I think I just saw. I'm going to defer this over to Twitter really quick. Did I see like a water cannon gets sprayed for a second too as well? It looks like it's more tear gas. It is getting pretty serious, and apparently, I don't have an address here, but this is just a block or two away from the parade route. Wow, very interesting. And back to your point, Andy, this is a protest. We're allowed to do that, but it is after the fact too as well. It's a little late, isn't it?
Well, it's a protest of his election, and he was lawfully elected. If, in fact, we had learned after the election that he stole the election or bullied his way into the White House, then taking to the streets in the spirit of 1789 would have been appropriate. But since there's no evidence that he was not lawfully elected, notwithstanding the fact that this time, as we've seen 4 other times in our nation's history, the winner of the popular vote did not win the electoral vote. That's true. But that's a defect in our Constitution that we're going to have to reform via constitutional amendment and go to, let's say, popular election of the president. But since there was no convincing or even abiding allegation that Mr. Trump's election was lawful or not, and that in fact it was a lawful election, I view protesting his inauguration as an affront to ordered liberty. And I think other Americans do as well. It's almost saying we're rejecting your mandate as a free people of who you elected president. And while one can possess a hostility to a certain candidate or even a certain president, he hasn't governed yet. And so what is being protested? What is being protested is his swearing in as president, and that has been done lawfully according to our constitutional form of government. And so I honestly, I have to be honest here and reveal that I'm offended by the notion that people would take to the street to protest a popularly or a lawfully elected president.
Well, and we have, there's two things going on here at the same time. We have to remember, let's not lose sight of the mass media's push to block, Trump's path. That's what was going on, and that didn't work for whatever reasons that he was elected. And now the popular vote, the way that the Electoral College is set up, that was fair. The same advantages were there for Hillary in the college too as well. We need to look at it that way. I've not lost sight of that. But what did happen was he was elected, and it was against that huge push in the media and celebrities and everybody coming forward. And for the first time, it just didn't seem to work. People want change. I'm not a fan of Trump or the way that he ran his election and the personal attacks, but he was elected and he is now our president. And that's my take on it. I'm not being soft and I'm not backpedaling. I've always said this from the word go, that I will support whoever is elected, and he's elected, and that's it. We're Americans. We need to move forward. But the establishment lost this time around. And I don't think we should be angry about that. I think we should be happy that it appears to me that the people won this time around and not the establishment. Am I wrong in having that point of view?
No, I think that's quite accurate. And I think that the hostility from the mainstream media may have fomented some of this discord that's now spilling into the streets with his inauguration as president. I would pose a question. I don't want to go out on a limb and make an assertion because I'm going to need the youth vote in 2020 and 2024 and 2028 when I plan to run again for president. But the question I would pose as a student of American history, and certainly a great fan of works like Generations by Strauss and Howe, where they try to sort of frame the peer personality of given American generations and even identify certain cyclical patterns within them. We have to be real about the fact that this generation that came of age with this election was, to grossly generalize, the generation that was given prizes for not winning races, if you know what I mean. And so I have to ask, is some of this protesting being done by a generation that doesn't know how to lose? Because learning how to lose in childhood is as important as learning how to be a good winner. And obviously the people protesting Mr. Trump's presidency are his political opponents who lost this election. But one can lose an election, one's candidate can lose the presidential race without one losing one's belief in honest elections and fair play and the notion that in America the people govern. And so I think that those who didn't vote for Mr. Trump shouldn't be taken to the streets. They should just be quiet and recognize that their candidate lost, somebody who was supported by other voters won, and we should now give them a fair chance to govern in a wise and a positive way and become a great president if that's within his capacity as a human being. But I don't think just the ascension of a certain individual who has shown no signs of being ultimately an evil or fascist president, although, again, we have to watch some of the excesses of his personality,
right,
and also some of his beliefs about what's going on in the country and abroad. But that's always the case with any president. But I agree that I think that the fomenting of the ganging up by the mainstream media against candidate Trump did to some extent foment the kind of rioting or protesting that's occurred on the day of his inauguration. But I also have to ask myself, have we raised a generation of young people who don't understand how to lose?
Yeah,
because there was a belief they had to be coddled as children and be given prizes for not winning races.
Yeah, everybody gets a trophy. Let's go back to the phones.
Yeah.
Hi, you're live on Fade to Black.
You talking to me, Jimmy?
Yes, I am.
Oh, I'm so happy about that. I agree with both of you in regards to, as a child learning how to lose. And anyway, I wanted to ask right away. Hi, Andy. I'm the Lynn from Aho. And I'm asking, what do you think Trump is going to do in regards to the things that a lot of our government people have done against the humanity in regards to the lies and disruption of not only our government, but of the world government.
Andy?
Well, I think actually that's probably why I would have made the superior choice as a presidential candidate. I think we can say that we can extrapolate from essentially the American first direction of the Trump inaugural address, and also the fact that, for example, on the campaign trail, he lauded the police rather than squarely addressing the fact that there's been an epidemic of police violence in the country. So while there may be an epidemic of violence against the police, there are still numerous incidents in which violence is not warranted and the police are out of control at the local level. And just by just lauding the police as our champions and protectors was a gross evasion of that discussion. So I think that the authoritarianism, the law and orderism, and the America First thrust of a Trump presidency will deny us the negative capability to, for example, prosecute former leaders or members of administrations, for example, for crimes against humanity and war crimes before the International Court of Justice. I think this is just a missing piece as a result of the election of Donald Trump. And I'd like to think that I would have governed, or I will govern in a more idealistic way than that. That's my point there. But I think that we lost that opportunity when we elected somebody promising that he would govern from the perspective of America first, and, for example, not hold Americans criminally liable for acts of dishonesty or for atrocities domestically or overseas. I think he's going to try to foment an era of good feelings where he unites us as a people, pretty much ignores what we've done overseas, and takes the position that he should govern from the point of view of America first. So, for example, he'll justify knocking the corporate tax rate down to 15% and then start crowing about American corporations returning to the country and creating jobs, ignoring the fact that there's a gross disparity of wealth in the country. So I think we have to really recognize the fact that we denied ourselves the sort of moral cleansing that we would have had with a more idealistic choice for president.
And I want to thank you for the phone call. What was your name again?
This is Lynn from Ajo, Arizona.
There you go, Lynn. Thank you so much. And, have a great, safe 2017. Will you do that for me, Lynn?
You all as well. And I want to thank both of you for covering this event. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Lynn.
Thank you,
Lynn out in Ajo, Arizona. Thank you so much. And now I'm watching what is unfolding here. And I got to say, there's a lot of, I don't know if they're concussion grenades or I don't have the audio. I'm just watching the video feed. If it's tear gas, but there is a lot of smoke in the streets in D.C. Going on right now. Andy, I wanted to ask you, do you think with the WikiLeaks, the FBI, the Hillary probe, the possibility of Russian interference and so forth, and the hacking, do you think that if none of that happened, right, the emails, the email server, the FBI probe, the Russian hacks, the WikiLeaks, the Podesta stuff, if that stuff didn't happen, which normally in a normal election cycle, certainly 20 years ago, none that, email servers and WikiLeaks, that technology wouldn't have been around, right? So without that, do you think Trump would have still been elected?
I kind of think that the switch may have been thrown here by the intelligence community and military. I would focus on the following story that emerged during the election, and it still is not resolved. The NYPD competes with Scotland Yard in terms of being the largest intelligence agency in the world,
right,
in terms of number of agents.
Right.
And the story that I don't think is going to go away, and I think may have affected this election, causing some of the revelations not against Trump, but that were beneficial to him, including the implication of Bill and Hillary Clinton, not just in the Lolita Express and pedophilia on Jeffrey Epstein's island in the Caribbean, but possibly involvement of the Clinton Foundation in the international trafficking of children, is for me the leading story that indicates maybe some of the backstory of this election. I would not be surprised if Rudolph Giuliani, as the former mayor of New York, has been the intermediary between candidate Trump and now President Trump and a child trafficking investigation that seems to have been conducted by the NYPD that, if it doesn't implicate the Clintons, may implicate prominent officials, including Clinton advisor John Podesta. So that's what I've been watching. I think that the allegation that WikiLeaks was a Russian ploy was a Democratic counterattack to that investigation. And while I'm not convinced that President Trump will pursue that investigation, there seems to be fire there and not just smoke regarding that story. The notion that President Clinton may have had sex with underage girls on Jeffrey Epstein's island there in the Caribbean certainly seems to be a substantial story. And there have also been allegations made against Mrs. Clinton. But I think that Pizzagate and the whole new assault on pedophilia and the international trafficking of children is not going to go away as a major story. And I'm proud of the fact that as a candidate for president with no Secret Service protection, I gave a number of interviews on radio about the history of the abduction and enslavement of American and other Western children by international traffickers, and their sale, for example, to Saudi Arabia, which, according to one of my former law clients, who was an advisor to President Nixon, has been going on since the 1950s. So I'm proud of the fact that as a candidate for president, I actually was talking about ending white slavery, as it's been called, ending the abduction and the international trafficking of children, and confronting the countries and the institutions and the people who have been involved in it with power politics and criminal prosecution. So I think that story is really the intriguing story of the 2016 election that is not going to go away.
And we also have, and when we come back after the break, we'll take some more phone calls, 323-825-5045. This is one of the most important days, if not the most important day in American history. This is a game changer. We now have our 45th president, and his name is President Donald Trump. A lot of media, if not most of the media, didn't think that this was going to happen. We did have celebrities. We had a huge onslaught of negativity that was pointed directly at Donald Trump. And the election happened, and he is now our president. And it is something that we were told was impossible. It was not going to happen. And now we've got protests going on in Washington, D.C. I thought that after everything else that happened in 2016, that we would have put everything behind us and we would have moved forward. Apparently, that is not the case. We'll see what's going to happen tomorrow. But, Andy, when we come back after this break, we're going to take some more phone calls. But I want to talk about the other phenomenon that happened in 2016, and that was fake news and the internet. That is one of the biggest stories because media was taken down. And that is one of the most important things that we can say. The alternative media, shows like this, were the ones that were presenting, well, most of the truth. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Our co-host today, Andy Basiago. More of your phone calls next. Donald Trump is the 45th president of the United States. I'll be right back.
Hey, what up, y'all? Sugar Vivica Fox here, and you are listening to my boy, Jimmy Church, on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Despite popular opinion, reading a book will not make you smarter.
But listening to Jimmy Church will.
Balance of Nature's fruits and veggies.
I had gout in both my knees, and it's gone.
Well, I'm pretty stupid. I should have ordered it 15 years ago. Best thing I ever got in my... It's the most effective product that I've ever bought in my life.
He had eczema on his hand, and it cracked for years. Mm-hmm. He did anything from doctor, every cream, everything. And 3 months on the veggies and fruit, it was gone.
They're just awesome. They keep asking me, what am I doing? I told them what I did with my cholesterol. I had the blood test, right? And it went down 100 points. 262, now it's 162. Everything is just perfect.
Call now to find out how to get your free month's supply of Balance of Nature. Call 800-2468-751. That's 800-2468-751. Call now, 800-2468-751. Or go online to balanceofnature.com.
Use promo code TSL.
Would odors, mold, and mildew describe your basement or crawl space? It doesn't have to be that way. Transform them into a fresh, healthy, usable one with the technologically advanced Wave moisture control units. The computerized operation maximizes moisture control and also expels harmful radon, combustion gases, and numerous other pollutants. Dehumidifiers are old technology that do nothing for air quality and waste energy. Wave units are intelligent, self-monitoring, do not need maintenance, and will save you hundreds in electricity. Wave units are still running effectively over 15 years. They've been tested and installed in public and military housing and by property managers nationwide. Buy a unit now, and if your home is not fresher and drier, you can return it for a full refund for up to 12 months. What have you got to lose? Call now. 1-888-618-WAVE. 1-888-618-WAVE. Or visit mydryhome.com. That's mydryhome.com.
Wave Home Solutions for a healthy, comfortable home.
What's up, Fadernauts? Studio Dome loves Fade to Black and the F2B audience so much that they have put together the ultimate stereo Bluetooth system. They've done it just for you. Man, check this out. The Studio Dome SBB2 stereo system is here. It's featuring 2 Studio Boombox 2 SBB2 wireless Bluetooth speakers, packed in its own custom hardshell case. This Studio Dome system features the very latest in stereo Bluetooth technology. The 2 full-range boomboxes are in true wireless stereo. You've got to hear this. It's amazing. It's just $129, and use the promo code JCRTWS, and you'll also get free shipping. It's simple. Just go to jimmychurchradio.com, click on the Studio Dome banner. Go Beckley Teppy.
It's not a lifestyle we chose. We were born this way. KGRARadio.com.
This is KJCR at JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. This is our inauguration special live event with our co-host, Andy Basiago. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Email is jimmy@jimmychurchradio.com. The protests continue in Washington, D.C. I'm watching the live coverage. The inaugural parade will begin soon. And the question is, are they going to, attempt to break through these police lines and disrupt the parade? Will that kick off? I'm going to continue the live coverage. If we have to go past 12 noon to do this, this is a very big day. And this is history being made in front of us. And if we have to continue, we will. This is too important of a day. And our co-host today is Andy Basiago. Andy, do you think that with the heavy security that they do have, and we expected that in Washington today, do you think it's possible for this protest to swell? And do you think they could break through these riot police and actually disrupt the parade?
I don't know. I'm away from my television, and I don't know how big the people in the streets are, how numerous they are. I know that it looks like they've had a beefing up of military protection of the president and his party there. So but I can only just guess because I don't right now have access to televised images of what's happening and could only just be speculating. But
it's
again,
jumping.
I take my ideological guidance from both sides of the political spectrum. There's some things that paleoconservatives believe that I endorse and some things that very radical leftists believe that I endorse. I'm not an ideologue. I try to arrive at my positions in a trans-ideological way, but I'm kind of conservative on this issue in the sense that I am offended that people would be protesting a lawful election.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a personal affront.
Well, you have to wonder, how many of these are paid protesters. I don't know who was involved with this. I don't know. I don't know how many sections of the town of Washington, D.C., if this is just concentrated on one. I'm just watching the live feed come in. I'm not actually listening to the comments of the talking heads. I'm really not interested in that part of it. I do want to welcome everybody that is listening live right now. The audience is really large, and thank you for that. I'm watching the numbers come in. And there you go with that. Now, you can participate over right now in Twitter, hashtag F2BQ, hashtag F2B. Those are our two live feeds that I monitor during the show. And, of course, we have the chat rooms that are completely full, too, as well, both over at KGRA and on Spreaker. I want to bring in Maria. She's live over in Sweden. Maria, welcome to the program, and say hi to Andy. But I want to ask you, Maria, really quick, how is the international side looking at this very important day? What's the media saying over there?
Hi, Andy.
Hi.
I really haven't been watching the local media as far as live coverage. I've been watching, U.S. coverage. But I think the majority of Europe is not really happy with Trump being the next president. But that's just the feeling I'm getting.
Right.
By reading articles and so forth.
Sure. Maria, did you have a question for Andy?
No, I didn't actually have a question for Andy. I wanted to respond to a statement that you had made earlier.
And what's that?
Well, I think it's a bit simplistic to say that you should stand behind your president 100%, because that's not what America is about. You should stand behind your country 100%. But if people always stood behind their president 100%, a lot of the things that we've come forward with would not have taken place. A lot of good things have come about from protest.
No, I'm not talking. Yeah, that's absolutely, and I agree with you. That's absolutely the opposite of what I mean. My point is, we have to allow anybody that has been elected to get in and do his job or her job. That's
Absolutely.
What we have to do.
And we all hope that he does exactly.
Yeah, we have to. We have to put our differences aside. That is my point. We have to be Americans now.
I agree.
Being unstable and getting off on the wrong foot here is not productive. Certainly, protest. Question. The press needs to keep pressure on the president. They need to make sure that things are going along and report back to us. These are all the things that need to stay solid. What we don't need to do right now is divide ourselves. That is not going to accomplish anything. Look, if we give him his chance and things don't go the way that they were supposed to, or he's not able to deliver on his promises, or there's some other issues that come up, okay, well, impeach, whatever. We'll effectively make that change. But until then, we need to be Americans. We need to support Trump, and we need to allow him to do his job and not be distracted. That's my point. And if a protest, man, I'm all for a good protest. Trust me on that.
There's some things that he's already doing that people are a bit weary about, and it's okay to protest those things, whether it's on day 1 or day 90. We as Americans have that right to do that. I think there are a lot of protesters down there today that aren't there because they don't believe he was legally elected. I don't think, Andrew, I don't think you should take offense to that. But I do think that there are people down there that are protesting certain aspects of change that he is promoting, that not everybody wants to see take place. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, I do. And I totally get it.
If
Go
I could
ahead,
jump in
Andy.
here. Yeah, if I could jump in here. I think the test of the Trump presidency is whether he was going to govern in the interest of the people in the sort of the neo-populist way that he framed in his inaugural address, or whether he's going to govern in the interest of the corporation and really just represent the hyper-Reaganization of the country. And let me just indicate one apparent cue or clue, if you will, to that I had to kind of research to figure out whether he in fact is a wolf in sheep's clothing and is going to be, Reagan on steroids. Let's face it, the apparent evidence in his selection of the chairman of Exxon as Secretary of State would indicate that he was going to comprise a pro-corporate government, and that the populist message that he used during the campaign and in his inaugural address is just a way to bamboozle the people as a Reaganite and a pro-corporate president. But here's what I later learned after realizing that he had nominated the chairman of Exxon as his Secretary of State. What I was informed, I haven't been able to research it yet, but what I was told is that the man that he nominated as Secretary of State is the American who has had the most contact with President Vladimir Putin of Russia. And I think we would all agree that a war between the United States and Russia at this point, a conflagration sparked by the proxy war that the Obama administration was waging upon the advice of a chronic, demented, anti-communist directed Russia hater, namely Zbigniew Brzezinski, President Obama's former poli-sci professor at Columbia, is not in the interest of this country. So as we gather more information, we have to look beyond the style of how he governs and ask, well, what's the substance here? Apparently, his rationale for nominating the chairman of Exxon as Secretary of State was to signal to Russia that he wanted to engage Russia in a spirit of constructive engagement rather than go to war with Russia. And that, in fact, is one of my 100 proposals. So while I share the caller's concern that we not censor ourselves, and we certainly have a right to assemble, to express our grievances against the government, and protest is always good, and there is much that was stated during the campaign that we should be alarmed about in terms of how a Trump presidency ultimately plays out. I think we have to not be too precipitous here, and that's the example that I would cite. I mean, when I learned that he had done so, I thought, oh, great, it's going to be Reagan on steroids. But in fact, that was a huge signal to Russia that he is seeking constructive engagement with them. So, and that's a very good thing, and that's very much in the interest of the American people. Is not literally, destroying the youth of our country in a hugely destructive war with another major power.
You go. I want to thank Maria. Great phone call, and it's very interesting when you look at the international side of this too. You need to put on your politician coat, and you need to go to politician school. These are traditions that go back thousands of years. I want to bring in Mike Bara. Mike, welcome to the program. How you doing?
Hey, man. I got a $7 coupon at the grocery store today, so I'm having an awesome day so far. I really am.
Say hi to Andy Basiago.
Hey, Andy. How are you?
Hi, Michael. Good to hear your voice again.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah, absolutely. And Mike, I could have sworn that I was looking at the live video feed of the protest, and I think I thought it was you throwing one of the tear gas bombs back at the police, but that's not you protesting in D.C.?
No, I would be more likely to be the guy on the rooftop peeing on the protesters from
Oh,
not that I'm
Mike.
admitting to that, because I'm not in Washington. I'm in a Washington right now, but not the Washington, D.C.
So how do you feel? This is a very, very, very historic day, and I've put it up there with many historic moments that this country has gone through. But here we are. It's official. Donald Trump is our 45th president of the United States. And how do you feel now going forward?
Well, I feel great. I mean, I think, I've been a Trump supporter from kind of the beginning of this, and I just thought he was saying a lot of things that people had been thinking for a long time and feeling for a long time and really hadn't gotten out. And he has a crass, over the top style, but he's not. I'm not unlike me in that sense. I rub people the wrong way sometimes, so I kind of empathize with him on that. But I mean, what really struck me was the tone of the speech today. I mean, he got up there, and there's a lot of people say, "Oh, Trump's a con man. You've been fooled. He's just doing this so he can make money for himself and his family." But I think today, they expected, if that was the case, I think he would have done what a lot of people expected, which is that he would have taken this, quote, presidential tone. But I mean, can I just read you a few of the lines from the things that he said right in front of these people? I mean, he did this in front of the Clintons, the Bushes, the Obamas, and he said, let me just read some of this. He said, every 4 years, we gather on these steps to carry out the orderly and peaceful transfer of power. We're grateful to President Obama and the First Lady for their gracious aid. They've been magnificent. But today's ceremony has a special meaning because today we're not merely transferring power from one administration to another or from one party to another, but we're transferring power from Washington, D.C., and giving it back to you, the American people. For too long, a small group of our nation's capital, has reaped the rewards of government while the people have borne the cost. Washington flourished, but the people did not share its wealth. Politicians prospered, but the jobs left and the factories closed. The establishment protected itself, but not the citizens of our country. Their victories have not been your victories. Their triumphs have not been your triumphs. And while they celebrated in our nation's capital, there was little to celebrate for struggling families all across our land. That all changes starting right here and right now, because this moment is your moment. It belongs to you. That, to me, in doing that in front of all of the establishment, the Republican Party establishment, the Democratic Party establishment, to me, that's laying down the law. That's drawing the line in the sand. That's saying, I intend to go to war with you people. And he did it right in their faces. So, those of us that believe in conspiracies probably don't expect them to last very long. I mean, I was thrilled, honestly, by that speech, those lines in that speech, in the hopes that he sincerely means them. And I would have to say my impression of the guy is that he does. So we'll see what happens.
Don't we hear the same speech every 4 years?
Wow, not that direct, not that strident, and not right at the people who have caused this. I mean, basically what he said is, all these people behind me are a bunch of crooks. They've taken advantage of their power and screwed you over, and that's all going to stop, and I'm going to confront these people. And, I think, honestly, like I talked about in The Choice back in 2010, I think the most interesting thing is going to be is, the way to do that, Jimmy, it's all about money, right? Money is power. I mean, it's theoretically within the purview of the president to basically just say within a couple of months or a couple of weeks or even just a couple of days, I don't think the Federal Reserve is going to print our money anymore. We're going to print it right out of the Treasury, and here's what we're going to back it with. Something like that is revolutionary, and there's you can make an argument, for instance, that the so-called national debt is not owed by the American people at all. It's just a private, it's a private exchange, it's a private debt that's not owned by the United States, owed by the United States. So, I mean, who knows what's going to happen? But I saw that and I thought, wow, this is not your typical everyday rhetoric, and all of the snowflakes on TV are really upset by it. So I think that signals that there is a new sheriff in town, and, we'll see. I think he's definitely going to go to war with the bureaucracy. Whether he can defeat it or not is another question.
Well, I heard the same tone that you're referring to, and certainly it's the first time I've ever heard anything that direct. And I did see the camera at that moment when he was saying, pan over to Obama. And Obama's reaction was pretty timid. But, well, he can't be angry at that point. But it was definitely directed at the past presidents that were there. And you're absolutely right. That tone was definitely intentional. And we've never heard anything like that from any other new president before us. Now, to that end, and I made the same comment with Andy, which is this. We always hear these same positive rah-rah, go team speeches on Inauguration Day. It is a moment that you can't say anything wrong, right? So I get that. All we need to have a position of hope here, in the hope that, as we do with every new president, that he is going to deliver on these promises. We've got some radical things that he is focusing on. Things that have been neglected, certainly infrastructure and education and what is going on inside of this country. But building a wall and dividing is, to me, feels a little bit extremist. I don't think that we need that.
Well, I mean, don't you think there ought to be a division between the United States and Mexico? I mean, are we two sovereign nations, or are we one North American Union for the purposes of economic exploitation, which is what's been going on for 25 or 30 years.
That's right, but you didn't say Canada. Right?
No, I agree. I think we ought to put a wall on the northern border with Canada too. But right now, I would say Mexico is the bigger problem, because there's a lot more illegals coming through from the southern border than there are the north. But I think you're right. I think eventually, if it's going to work, it's going to have to be at both sides, because the Canadian border is wide open, and you don't have a government that's real friendly to the idea of controlling it. So.
Well, and so my point is this. Mexico and Canada, we are not only neighbors, but we're friends. And what we don't need to do is to divide. And I think the symbolism of the wall, the symbolism of it, sends the wrong message, man. Hire more border patrol. Get some electronic measures in there. But building a wall, this is the thing. America first. There's no question about that. But I've said this time and time again, Mike, and I'll say this to Andy too. Building a wall doesn't block out anything. It's closing yourself in, and it sends the wrong message. You are building the wall for the wrong reasons. You can say one thing, but it represents another. And
Jimmy, all I can say in response to that is maybe it's time for us to turn inward and focus on our own problems and get our fingers out of the Ukraine and out of the Middle East and out of all these places. Other than to protect Israel, which I believe deserves the right to exist. I don't see, why we're involved in all these countries. I mean, I did originally support the Iraq War in the beginning, but the way it's gone on and the mess that's been allowed to create. I mean, I think people are really kind of sick of this stuff, and maybe we need to build walls and work on our own problems for a while.
Oh, okay.
I mean, we do have issues here.
Well, symbolically, we can do that. I mean, I'm talking about a symbolic, an intangible, an invisible wall. And yes, absolutely. America first. I've talked about that constantly,
Jimmy,
on this show.
Are you suggesting that we put like those dog shock collars on all Mexicans, and if they hit the border electronically, it just goes off and zaps them? Or that's not what you're suggesting.
I understand the humor in that. I do. I get where you're going.
Humor in that, yes.
I get where you're going, but I just don't think that dividing North America and Central America, or South America too as well, the power that we have over here is because of our friendships and because of what we represent to the rest of the world. Do we have issues with open borders that we have to the north and the south? Yeah. Of course. But
wait a minute. Do you remember the Tim Allen sitcom Tool Time?
Of course.
And I remember he had this friend, the neighbor, I forget the guy's name, was it Fred or something? And he talked to them. They were friends, right? But they were friends across the fence. They had a fence between their yards. It's the same reason we have, borders and protection. I mean, the reason that you have a border is to say that, okay, this is our set of values on this side of the border or the wall or whatever you call it. These are our shared values. And, I mean, that's why you have borders in the first place. So what's the point of having a border if you don't have a physical barrier? I mean, the Mexicans have a physical barrier on their southern border. They have a wall.
Well, but the Tim Allen wall, right, and the walls that we have over at our house, too, as well, those aren't there because, no, let me tell you why they are there. They are there so we can party without having our neighbors see us sitting around in our underwear.
So it's privacy.
Okay. It's not about anything more than that.
If your neighbors were running drugs into your backyard and trying to feed them to your dogs, and
right, I don't need to offend.
They were sending criminals into your backyard. Right. You might feel a little bit differently about wanting to have that.
No, you defend your property and you call the police and you deal with it. And maybe you get a little ass kicking going on, but you don't have to build a 20-foot concrete wall around your house and develop that into a bunker mentality. And that's what I just don't think that we need that here.
Speaking from the bunker
from a bunker.
Jimmy, if I might jump in.
Yeah, go ahead, Andy.
Somebody who ran in 2016. I basically agree with what both of you are saying, and this goes to style, and it goes to rhetoric. In reality, the issue is not the United States' relationship with Mexico or Mexicans. It's the fact that there is no abiding constitutional or moral duty that the United States possesses to constantly absorb immigrants. Look at the Ellis Island experience. The Golden Door was open from 1880 to 1924. Then it closed for 40 years until 1965. The problem with the way that the Trump campaign addressed immigration is it focused on Hispanics, and he also vilified the laboring immigrant when, in fact, he was sued by a group of illegal Polish immigrants who worked for him and who had to file a lawsuit against him to get paid for the work that they ably performed. So I think that the mistake that the Trump campaign made in the area of immigration, he should have said, look, the diversity of this country is its strength. One of our greatest presidents, John F. Kennedy, wrote a book about the fact that we're, quote unquote, a nation of immigrants. But now is the time to close the golden door of immigration from all countries for a period of time during which we can absorb and acclimate and
assimilate
and bring into full citizenship the new arrivals and the new families that are here. I mean, when you have 140 languages spoken in the LI Unified School System, what do you need to have? What kind of handwriting do you need to have on the wall to see that the rank and file American, not just Anglos, but people of all ethnic backgrounds, feel inundated by the immigration that is occurring and the competition for basic civic resources that is coming from foreign nationals, including jobs, I might add, in the United States of America. So I think that Trump's opposition to immigration is within the natural cyclical history of the country. It is a time, and in fact, in my 100 proposals, I called for a moratorium on immigration from all countries until we can make immigration to this country safe in terms of eliminating the threat of terrorists and criminals entering our country, until we can ask whether we're bringing in immigrants from all countries rather than predominantly from Latin America. But the issue isn't Latin American immigration. It's the fact that cyclically the United States has to enter an era in which we're not accepting immigrants because essentially we're flooding the country with foreign nationals who are so competing with American citizens for different types of opportunity that the public is becoming resentful of that fact.
Okay,
and that's the signal that we should have a moratorium.
All right, Andy, let's pause this right here. We're going to do a little bit of overtime, so you just stay right there. I can't end this show just yet. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Our co-host today on this Inauguration special live event is Andy Basiago. We've got Mike Bara joining the show, so I'm going to take a quick break and more with Andy and Mike right after this. Stay with us.
You're listening to Jimmy Church, Fade to Black.
Fade to Black will now pause for alien identification.
The station that talks the net. KGRA Radio. When you take the beans from Central America with dashes of Indonesian and African mixed in and then roast it to the dark side of Fade to Black, you create the ultimate brew of fringe. Introducing the Fade to Black blend from River Moon Coffee. Yes, River Moon's darkest customized roast was created for the love of Fade to Black. The alchemy of masterful roasting and smoking the beans is in every sip of this full-bodied, dark Java. I need my coffee dark, deep, with distinct bittersweet chocolate highlights, just like the bunker. Leaning further into the darkness of the roast is Fade to Black blend from River Moon Coffee. Just click on the banner at jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code F2B blend for 15% off of your order today. Go Beckley Tepe.
Hi, folks. In a world of GMO, genetically modified organisms, that is, chemicals, processed foods, and a healthcare system that's unraveling like a cheap suit, it's time to prepare. God created herbs, and herbs help man. Our body can heal itself, just sometimes we need assistance. You need some help? GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com. Our mild detox is quite powerful with its unique blend of 8 different herbs. And if you're looking for more, our non-GMO supplements will help you with different needs you might have. Health should be a top priority. Take care of your health naturally. Log on to GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com. Give your body a treat. Let the herbs do their thing naturally. Read all the testimonies on the website, GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com. Sickness and viruses are like intruders, and herbs are like warriors. Let the tea work for you. That's GetTheTea.com.
9 out of 10 geneticists agree.
Fade to Black is not your father's radio show on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, The Planet.
Hi, this is Chase Kletsky with Fate Magazine Radio, and you're listening to Jimmy Church and Fade to Black on the Game Changer Network and the KGRA digital broadcast station where the Fader-Knots rock.
Hi, this is Rob Reiner from Anvil, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
What's up? I'm Chris. What up? This is Kyle Massey, and you're listening to Jimmy Church Radio.
Welcome back. Fade to Black. Yeah, this is our inauguration special live event with Andy Basiago. We've got Mike Bara, who has just joined the show. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Email is jimmy@jimmychurchradio.com. On the Game Changer Network and KGRA, The Planet, we're going to do a little bit of overtime. I want to thank everybody that has joined us on this very, very special day in American history. And with that, check this out. I just saw something pop up in Twitter. I wanted to feed you guys that Canada is okay with the wall to keep us out, right? And I get that. Now, if you stop and think about that for a second, let's analyze that statement. What if Canada decided to build a wall for their own reasons? How would we deal with that down here? What does that say to us and how they look at us? That wouldn't, it just wouldn't be cool, would it? I mean, think about that for a second. And that's the way that Mexico is looking at us, building a wall.
Jimmy, does that mean they have to take back Shatner and Loverboy then beyond the wall once they build it?
Dude, I love Shatner. Justin Bieber is another issue. Okay. That's a whole nother issue. That's a whole nother issue. No, man. Loverboy. Are you kidding me, man? I saw Loverboy twice. I think I saw Loverboy with like Quiet Riot back in the day. All right.
I saw Loverboy, believe it or not, open up at the Paramount Theater in Seattle for a local band called The Heats, who were actually a lot better than Loverboy, a lot more pop-oriented. But Loverboy just took off after that, and The Heats never got that record contract. It's a real shame. But people in Seattle will remember that.
Man, Loverboy, man.
Yeah.
What was his name? Mike Reno.
Mike Reno.
Yeah, Mike Reno.
Who was the guitar player with the standard curly, permed guitar player hair, the Paul Stanley knockoff hair?
I actually met him up in Canada. Man, what was his name? That'll come back to me in a second. Somebody in Canada
knows. Somebody out there knows.
Somebody. We're going to see this light up in Twitter in a second. Some Mike Reno pictures. I like Loverboy. You know what's funny? I'm going to say this really quick, and sorry about this, Andy. We tend to go off on music tangents on the show. The Loverboy record, that debut album that came out, which was a huge hit. The bass player, I'm reading this in an interview. He goes, what really sucks, man, is most people don't realize it, but my bass is out of tune on that record, and I can't stand listening to it. So I went back and started listening, and he's right. His bass was out of tune just a little bit.
That's like me when I read Dark Mission.
Right.
I can't believe I wrote that way.
And so I went back and I started listening to these tracks, and he was right. And the songs were more powerful. It allowed us to look past the out of tuneness of. Look at Twitter. Twitter's lighting up, man. Look at everybody with the Loverboy gifts. All right. Thank you guys for this.
Make Loverboy great again.
Make Loverboy great again.
Make the Seahawks great again.
Oh, man. But how would you feel, Mike? You live up there, Canada decides to build a wall all the way down, cutting off Vancouver from Washington, Victoria, all the way across. What would that say to us? I mean, I know that Canada doesn't like us already. They're still pissed off about Wayne Gretzky. And I get that. And
we're here with our women. That's what we did.
Some things are painful. But if they built a wall, it just symbolizes all the wrong things. And that's what I'm saying about the border with Mexico. If we need more border guards, we need electronic surveillance, we need to do that. Okay, all right. But building a wall just sends the wrong message, man. I just don't think it's cool.
Well, I think it's gonna happen. So I don't think he's. Yeah, there's the guy with the hair. I don't think he's joking about this. I think he's serious about it. And I mean, the northern border wall. I don't know. How would I feel about it? I think I'd be okay with that. I don't like the fact that I feel like we're totally wide open to it's really the Islamic terrorists that are the biggest concern. I mean, there's definitely some economic concern with crime and safety with some of the Mexican immigration and Latin American immigration, but it's really the terrorists that concern me. And don't forget, Jimmy, there was a guy back around the turn of the millennium that was caught at the U.S.-Canadian border with a truck full of explosives. He was going to drive that sucker down to LAX and blow up the airport. So that happened. And I mean, Al Qaeda, they have a long memory. They don't forget like they did with the Twin Towers. So I would expect us to get hit in LAX at some point again. They're going to try that. So I don't know. I'd be fine with the wall. I think it's great. And, think of all the Canadians it would put to work.
His name was Paul Dean.
Paul Dean.
That was the guitar player for Loverboy. Paul Dean. There you go, man.
Wow. Now I know. Now I remember.
Man, he kind of looked like a mix between who did you say? You said Paul Stanley?
A little bit of the Paul Stanley hair, but I think I don't know. It looks like he could be a leftover guy, Foreigner guitar player, Mick Jones a little bit when he was skinny.
What's his name from Queen? The guitar player for Queen?
Oh, Brian May.
Brian May. He's got a little Brian May going on there too as well.
Dr. Brian May, by the way, PhD. Don't forget that.
Man, Loverboy, they must have made a pile of money back in the day. All right, let's get off this Canadian thing. I'm being serious though. How would we feel if they built a wall? And that's exactly how Mexico's looking at it.
Well, you mean would you feel offended? I mean, is that what you're saying? That you think that the Mexicans are offended that we're doing this?
Oh, why wouldn't they be? I would be.
Okay. Well, I mean, they are getting $60 billion a year in money out of us in trade every year.
Go ahead, Andy. What was that?
No, there are two issues, and that is one issue is about immigration. Immigration levels should be determined in terms of a demographic analysis of whether in any particular time period of our history we need more Americans. It's clear that right now we don't need any more Americans from every country in the world. The other issue, Mexico or other countries south of us or from wherever, the other issue is border security. When Trump was focusing on building a wall and accusing Mexico of basically exporting criminals and rapists and so forth into the United States, the real issue was border security. And in fact, at that time, there were only 3 U.S. naval vessels protecting the entire, talk about Canada, protecting the entire St. Lawrence Seaway from illegal entry. 3 ships protecting, for example, New York City from somebody moving a nuclear device across the St. Lawrence Seaway and into New England and into New York City by automobile. Okay? So really what Trump did in this campaign that was a mistake and goes against, I think, what he actually was trying to emphasize. He was really, I think, trying to emphasize 2 issues, which is we are probably entering an era in which an immigration moratorium so that we can absorb the last generation of immigrants would be a good thing, a salutary thing. We also have discrete issues of border security now that we're living in an era in which people that want to destroy us can enter a fairly porous border. So as president, and I certainly did this in my 100 proposals, I called for an immigration moratorium because I believe the demographic argument supports it. Not just the anecdotes about 140 languages being spoken in the LA Unified School District, but the net consensus of the ordinary American driving on a crowded freeway and looking to their left and right and seeing stickers on people's cars from other countries, not just Latin American countries. Okay? So there's an argument for an immigration moratorium. The other thing I emphasized in my 100 proposals was securing our borders, including the Canadian border, because right now it's wide open. And yes, we're receiving a lot of potentially Middle Eastern terrorists through the southern border, and there has to be some component of illegal immigrants from Latin America are going to have criminal histories. But in fact, most Latin American immigrants in the United States are decent, hardworking people. They're family-oriented. They're predominantly Roman Catholic. And I might add, I actually wrote a rather long piece during the campaign about the different benefits of Hispanic immigration into the United States. I mean, Mexicans, per se, have been contributing to our economic development since we built rail lines into northern Mexico in the 1880s, sparking several generations of the pattern of migrating to the United States, working and returning to their homes in Mexico. So I view overall Hispanic labor and Hispanic immigration as a bulwark of our contemporary society. But that's not the issue. And Trump made that the issue to some extent based on his comments and how to some extent they were misinterpreted. The real issues are, do we need to expand our 330 million Americans with a robust program of immigration. Right now, we don't. We're kind of where we were in 1924. We need a period of quiescence, a period of an immigration moratorium, where we enculturate those who are here, both individuals and their families and communities. And then the second issue is, what are we doing to secure our borders? I think that the wall issue is actually a border security issue and not an anti-immigrant or anti-Hispanic migrant issue. I think it's misplaced when it focuses on quote-unquote building a wall with Mexico. So, for example, during the campaign, Trump never mentioned, and also securing the Canadian border from illicit entry, because some of that illicit entry is going to include terrorists, maybe even terrorists equipped with nuclear weapons or other explosives. So
I think I just read it.
That's why I parsed that issue that way.
I think I just read a tweet. I need to get back to it. It said that the Canadians wouldn't build a wall. They would build a nice trellis with flowers and vines.
That's somebody who's lived in Canada, as I have.
Well, they're very nice people.
Very nice people.
You know,
well, hold on. And I'm going to let both of you respond to this. Since Andy just spoke, I'm going to throw this to Mike first, and then Andy, you come in. How much of what Trump has promised is he actually going to be able to pull off? You have time constraints. You only have 8 years or 4 years, possibility of 8. So you have time constraints, but you have budget constraints. You have relationships internationally and nationally that you have to deal with and overcome too as well. So how much is he actually going from Obamacare to the wall, to the infrastructure, to taxes? I can continue. Immigration, the strengthening of the military. You have these nuclear issues that he has referenced directly as promises. How much of this can he actually deliver? Or will he be able to do any of it?
Well, I think, first of all, can I just address Andy's last comments just a second? I think that I agree with you. It's border security, but the wall, the purpose of the wall is not just the illegal immigrants coming across the border. There's also tons of drugs and contraband and weapons and things like that coming in from the southern border that the wall would be a physical barrier to and would help considerably. So I think that's a factor in actually building a physical wall. To answer your question, Jimmy, I think he can accomplish quite a bit, especially very early on. I mean, Obamacare's basically they've already got a repeal for that. They can then replace it as long as it doesn't get too bogged down in the details. You know, I think you can replace Obamacare right away. You could do the tax cuts right away to change the tax codes. I mean, don't forget when in 2012, remember in 2012 when all these people who voted for Obama were all shocked in January when they got their paychecks and they were all $300 or $400 lighter than they were before because of the Bush, quote, tax cuts for the rich. And I guess they discovered that they were rich as far as the Democrats were concerned. I mean, that's something you can pass, is you can get these tax cuts through that will put money back into the hands of people. I mean, right now our incomes are actually lower than they were 8 years ago. There really hasn't been a raise in terms of the American people's incomes since the year 2000, give or take. And the quickest way to get more money back into people's hands is to reduce their tax burden. Just let them keep what they already make. See, that can be done very quickly. And then I think the physical building of the wall can be done very quickly. There's already money allocated for it in previous budgets that was never spent properly. I think Trump can move money around under executive orders and just say, okay, go out and find bidders and start building this stuff. I mean, that is something he does. He builds stuff, physical objects, and I just think that's something he's going to do. So I would expect those three things at least get done right away. Now, the other stuff, the long-term stuff, a better relationship with Russia will be very interesting. You know, your wife probably knows a little bit more about that stuff than I do, but I have a sense that, you know, he doesn't want to get involved in any more wars. He would like to get us out of the wars that we're already in by finishing them and finishing them quickly. And I think that we're going to work, you know, the enemy of my enemy is my friend, even if Russia might have nefarious designs on the Baltic states or parts of the Ukraine. I don't know. I got a feeling all this stuff is going to get done in the first year. And that's usually when presidents are the most effective. I mean, look at Reagan's first year. It was very effective, even in spite of the fact that he got shot.
Andy?
I think that in a general sense, President Trump is lucky that he has a Republican Congress in terms of both houses of Congress. But if we look at history, that's not always a guarantee that an activist president necessarily will win the consent of Congress to passing his proposed legislation. Ultimately, President Trump's positions will have to become legislation, and that legislation will have to become programs. I think the analogy that I'd like to cite is that, again, of President Kennedy. We tend to forget that in trying to pass things like the space program, the Alliance for Progress, the Peace Corps, President Kennedy was initially and largely opposed by a Congress that consisted of both houses being controlled by the Democrats, his own party. So I think this is really the $64,000 question that we're now confronted by in terms of the political handicapping and sort of the Trump watch, and ask ourselves, will he be opposed, or will he be supported by the particular Republican branches of the legislative branch that are now in place? It's not axiomatic that just because both houses of Congress are now controlled by the Republicans, that he won't be opposed and that everything will be rubber stamped and he'll be able to pursue all of the different proposals that he spoke about in the campaign. I think that if we look at it past his prologue, there was widespread disdain for candidate Trump and opposition from within the Republican Party. So we may find a case analogous to the Kennedy years in the sense that we'll have an activist president being opposed by a Congress in which the majorities are held by members of his own party.
It's kind of like the situation to me now is we're like the congressional Republicans are like the guys standing on the beach, okay? And the ocean has receded back all the way to the horizon. The question is, are they going to figure out what's coming and run like hell for the high ground, or are they going to stand there and get wiped out by it? Because I really think that the people that are going to get nailed in 2 years, if they don't get with the program, are going to be the congressional and establishment Republicans in the House and the Senate, not just the Congress. Because I think the tidal wave is coming, and if they haven't recognized the signs by now, they're going to get just washed away in the whole thing.
I want to thank both of you for coming in today. This is a very special day for us and our country. And Donald Trump is now our 45th president of the United States, and we will address him now as President Trump. And I want to thank the both of you for coming in. Thank you, Andy. Just a great program today, and Mike coming in late in the fourth quarter and always stirring up trouble. Thank you both. And let's just have a great 2017. Thank you both.
Thank you, Jimmy. Thanks, Andy.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. All right. What a great show today. And it was telling. I mean, we had a little bit of everything here. It looks like, just a quick update, looks like the protests have settled down. And the parade is about to start. They are all set up at the Capitol, and the congressional luncheon is over. And at any moment, President Trump is going to walk down those steps and get in his new Cadillac Escalade knockoff limousine and start the parade. It was a very big day. He was sworn in as the 45th president. I had said yesterday that in our current timeline, our current lifetime, we witness a few significant events. And in the past 30 years, crazy things have gone down. 40 years, the Vietnam War and the Gulf Wars 1 and 2 that are still continuing. Of course, 9/11. The fall of the Berlin Wall and the fall of the Soviet Union. These were all huge events. And for us here in the United States to have a day like this happen, it is extraordinary. I want to thank all of you for coming in and listening and participating. Thank you for everybody in the chat rooms and Twitter and the email. And it was something that wasn't supposed to happen. The media, the world, the celebrities, they just said it wouldn't happen. Well, Donald Trump is our next president. I do consider this a huge game changer. It is a significant day for us as Americans, and I want us all to be positive. We have to unite. We have to unite the country and get these divisions down that have been generated through not only the media, but the fake media and the fake news that drove our emotions left and right. It divided families. It divided industry. It divided our employers. It divided everybody. Well, that is now behind us. How will the Trump presidency turn out? I don't know. Will he be everything that he said during the campaign? I don't know. Will he be able to pull everything off? I don't know. The message today, his speech today, was positive, and it was aggressive, and it was like nothing we have heard before from a brand new president. Having Donald Trump as our leader is a true game changer. What kind of game will it be? I don't know. What kind of changer will he be? I don't know. Only history will tell us the truth. That will be the judge, and that is what matters. I think the important things for us and our community, what will Trump mean to ufology and disclosure? These are questions that will be answered. He's going to get exposed to these. How much will big money, the Illuminati, the cabal, the shadow government, what runs in the background, how much of this will influence Trump? Somebody that's got a very strong personality and an attitude and anti-everything. How much of this will influence him? Or is he already a card-carrying member of the elite? And does he represent them? We do not know, but we will be witness to all of this, and we will be able to judge him. Will he get that phone call today? He's going to go into the Oval Office. He's going to settle down. He's going to sit there with his staff and the security, and all of the agencies are going to be there. They're going to open up files. Things are going to be presented to him. Will this change him? Well, all of these questions and much, much more are going to be answered in the days and weeks ahead. I want to thank all of you for participating today on this very historic moment in American history. I am your host, Jimmy Church. This has been and will conclude our inauguration special live event right here on Fade to Black. We will see all of you on Monday. We've got some big stuff coming up, and let's do this. Now, I do want to say happy birthday to Linda Moulton Howe. Happy birthday, Linda. Fade to Black's executive producers Rita Kamarian. Shows produced by Hilton J. Paul, Mark D. Kovar, LJ3, Renee, Jonas. Thank you, Dennis. Thank you, Bob. Announcers are Steve Harder, Gene Vito, and Mark D. Kovar. Fady by Dale. Webmaster is Drew the Geek. Music, Doug Aldrich. Intro, Spaceboy. SpaceboyMusic.com. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network. Syndication is KGRA The Planet. I want to thank Andy Basiago for coming in today. All of the callers that called in. Thank you to Mike Bara and Alfred Webre. This broadcast is owned and copyrighted 2016 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the live universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Email is jimmy@jimmychurchradio.com. Everybody have a great, safe weekend. Go Backley Tappy.